Chapter 81 Look Down on the Guards Part 2. What are they doing here? Li Yi was speechless and asked. Uchiha Makoto replied, they came to investigate whether this room is suitable for us. How did they investigate? Li Yi asked. I don't know either. Uchiha Makoto shook his head, maybe they have a unique method. Li Yi's forehead. To be honest, he doesn't want to deal with the guards right now. Because he was worried that he couldn't help it and accidentally killed them. In the past few years, the one who bullied Li Yi the most was being the guard. This revenge must be avenged. Moreover, the relationship between Li Yi and the guards now is like fire and water, incompatible with each other. In their eyes, Li Yi was just a piece of trash who actually killed Dashang Uchiha. This is tantamount to discrediting the guards. Therefore, the current relationship between Li Yi and the guards is very simple. Li Yi will not treat them well, and they will not treat Li Yi well. And now, they are actually coming to the house. Li Yi was speechless. What's your expression like? Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly and asked, why, you don't want them to come to your house? Li Yi nodded directly, that's right. Why, afraid of them bullying you? Uchiha Makoto asked. As soon as these words came out, Li Yi immediately glanced at Uchiha Makoto. That kind of gaze is like looking at a fool. Afraid they will bully me. Ha ha, joke. Lao Su's current strength is equivalent to above Chunin and below Jonin. What's more, the development potential of Lao Su is endless. Will Lao Su be afraid of them? Seeing Li Yi's eyes, Uchiha Makoto nodded and said, Li Yi, I know that your relationship with us and the Chia clan is not good. Very bad. Li Yi corrected. Well, indeed, very bad. Uchiha Makoto nodded lightly, but then changed the subject and said, I hope that from today onwards, your relationship with us and the Uchiha clan will improve. Actually, I have no hatred with you Uchiha clan. Li Yi corrected again, I just look down on the guards. Ah. Uchiha Makoto was speechless. At this time, she wanted to say something. Almost all of the guards are from Uchiha's clan, okay. However, before Uchiha Makoto spoke, suddenly, a disdainful laughter appeared from the door. Hee hee, you look down on us. What right do you have to look down on us? What a big joke. Before he finished speaking, a pop sounded again. I saw a black thread that got in through the crack of the door, then went all the way up the door and grabbed the door handle. Then, twist slightly. The door was opened. 3 men stood outside the room. The man in the lead stretched out his right hand, snapped his fingers, and made a pop sound, and then the black line disappeared. Seeing this scene, Li Yi narrowed his eyes slightly, shadow mimicry. In the original work of Hokage, shadow imitation is a ninjutsu only used by the Nara family, and it is also the bloodline boundary of the Nara family. Now, the ninja used by the ninja in front of him is very similar to the shadow imitation technique. The 3 stood at the door, arrogant. Li Yi frowned slightly. However, before Li Yi could speak, Uchiha Makoto's face sank, and he lowered his voice and said, Who let you in? Do you know how to be polite? Are there any rules? Although her voice was not loud, it was invisibly exuding an oppressive aura. When the 3 heard her words, their expressions changed slightly. In the end, the leader of the 3 said, Sister Makoto, he insulted our Uchiha family, we can't help but fight back. Li Yi wanted to answer, I fucking insult you, what can you do to me? However, before Li Yi could answer, Uchiha Makoto said, he didn't insult our Uchiha family, he was just talking about the guards, and, I don't think he was insulting the guards, because he had the right to say this. Hearing this, the 3 of them choked. After holding it for a while, the leader said, Makoto sister, I think you look down on him a little too much. Uchiha Makoto said with a stern face, Li Yi is my savior. In the future, you should treat him better. Otherwise, I Uchiha Makoto will not spare you lightly. Although her voice was not loud, Her tone was extremely strong. The faces of the three were not very good-looking. However, they did not dare to refuse Uchiha Makoto's request. So they had to say in unison, "I see." But Uchiha Makoto pointed at Lee Yi and said, "Apologize to him." The faces of the three changed. "Apologize to a piece of crap? How is this possible? Kill me and I won't apologize to a rubbish." Seeing the hesitant expressions on the faces of the three, Uchiha Makoto's face sank and he shouted, "Did you hear? Now, immediately, apologize to him." The three were still hesitant. They really don't want to be soft on Lee Yi's trash. On the other hand, Lee Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Actually, how could he not know the purpose of Uchiha Makoto? That is to resolve the hatred in Lee Yi's heart. She knew that Lee Yi was angry, and if he didn't let it out, then Lee Yi and the Uchiha family would never be reconciled. So Uchiha Makoto will do it now. However, Lee Yi didn't want to give them this chance. Because Lee Yi will never forgive those who once bullied him. "If anyone offends me, I will pay it back tenfold." Therefore, before the three of them could speak, Lee Yi said directly, "You don't need to apologize to me." Hearing this, the three of them breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this bastard is cowardly. Otherwise, I would really have to apologize to him. I don't want to do such a shameful thing. I just didn't expect that this waste is so weak and cowardly. With the support of Uchiha Makoto, how could he be so cowardly? Sure enough, trash is always trash. Lame. In the hearts of the three, they looked down on Lee Yi even more. However, when Uchiha Makoto heard Lee Yi's words, his face changed. She has an ominous premonition. However, before Uchiha Makoto could speak, Lee Yi smiled directly and said, "Don't say it's a verbal apology. Even if you kneel down and apologize to me now, I won't forgive you. If you apologize to me, I will feel very cheap." Quote. Lee Yi's voice was not large, it was extremely clear, reaching the ears of everyone present. The three were still smug at first, and felt that Lee Yi was cowardly and would always be a waste. But now, after listening to Lee Yi's words, the three of them were stunned for a moment, and then their faces suddenly sank. There is one more update. It is estimated that it will be late. The world is looking for silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 82-Insult the Dog. Third more. The three thought that Lee Yi was cowardly and did not ask them to apologize. Lee Yi dare not accept their apology. Coward. But now it seems that their idea is so wrong. Lee Yi actually felt that the three of them apologized to him and lost his price. Don't say it's a verbal apology. Even if he kneels down and kowtows to apologize, will Lee Yi feel that the price has dropped? Too arrogant. So arrogant. The faces of the three of them suddenly turned gloomy like a dark cloud. "What did you say?" Leader stared at Lee Yi and said in a low voice, "Tell me if you have the ability." However, before he could finish speaking, Uchiha Makoto stood up from the sofa and said coldly, "Okay, don't talk anymore, just get down to business." She was worried that the situation would worsen and lead to bad consequences, so she spoke out to stop it. Lee Yi doesn't care. In fact, to be honest, he's a little itchy right now. He wants to know what level his current strength has reached. However, the leader said, "Makoto sister, you heard him too, I can't bear this tone." Uchiha Makoto said, "Don't forget your responsibility." However, before Uchiha Makoto finished speaking, Lee Yi interrupted, "If you just talk and don't practice the fake hand pose, who can't brag, since you can't bear it, come on, are you a dog, you just bark and don't bite." Quote. As soon as these words came out, the leader's face instantly turned blue. However, before he could answer, Lee Yi continued, "Oh sorry, I shouldn't have called you a dog." The leader frowned. Why does this piece of shit say that? Did he confess? Hee, even if you admit that you are cowardly, I will not let you go. However, the next moment, Lee Yi added, "To say you are a dog is to insult the dog." You don't look in the mirror to see what you are. Li Yi's voice was not loud, it was very clear and reached the ears of everyone present. Puff tilde. Uchiha Makoto burst out laughing directly. The next moment, she covered her mouth and stopped smiling. After all, in this serious occasion, laughing is a very impolite behavior. At the same time, the leader was completely furious, biting Kiba and roaring every word, "You find, die." While speaking, his eyes began to change, and a blood color gradually filled his eyes. Apparently, he's driving Sharingan. Li Yi narrowed his eyes. Come on, I want to see, is your Sharingan fast, or my wishful gold hoop fast? Li Yi was carrying both hands, and in his right hand, the golden light flickered slightly. However, before Li Yi could make a move, Uchiha Makoto suddenly stood in the middle of Li Yi and the leader, and shouted, "Enough, don't make trouble anymore, you all hurry up to perform the task, and leave immediately after completing the task. In the name of commanding you." Looking at Uchiha Makoto's face, the leader's expression changed slightly. Eventually, his face returned to normal and he said, "Okay, I'll listen to you." Having said that, he looked at Li Yi behind Uchiha Makoto again, and threatened, "This time someone will protect you. I won't touch you, but next time, don't let me meet you, or I will." However, before he finished speaking, Li Yi smiled and said, "No need for next time, just this time, come on, whoever counsels is a dog. Oh no, calling you a dog is just scolding a dog." The leader's face darkened again. However, looking at Uchiha Makoto's face, he took a deep breath, forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart, and his face returned to normal. He stopped talking to Li Yi because he was afraid he couldn't help it. Then, with a big wave of his hand, he said, "Brothers, check the room." Uchiha Makoto first rubbed his eyes, then turned around, looked at Li Yi, and said, "Li Yi, let them check, let's go out first." "Don't we have to stay here?" Li Yi deliberately looked at Uchiha Makoto's eyes and asked. "No." Uchiha Makoto shook his head lightly and explained, "They just check the room, not us. Let's go out for now, and we'll come back after they finish checking the room." Li Yi thought for a moment, then nodded lightly, "Okay." The two walked out of the room. Looking at the back of Li Yi's departure, the leader's gaze was extremely cruel. Damn it, god damn it, 10,000 people. In his heart, he scolded Li Yi countless times. He really wants to rub Li Yi on the ground now. Li Yi, who had already reached the door, suddenly turned his head and asked, "What's your name?" The leader blinked, then patted his chest proudly, and said, "My name is Uchiha Untrustworthy." Breakfast. Li Yi smiled and said, "This name is really interesting." Leader could hear the sarcasm in Li Yi's tone. "What do you mean?" The leader asked with a sullen face. "I just thought your name was funny." Li Yi said, "What did your parents think at the time? Did they get watered up in their brains, and that's why they gave you such a funny name?" This is good. Not only did Li Yi scold him, but even his parents scold him. Uchiha's untrustworthy fury again. "You can scold me, scold my parents, I will work hard with you." However, before Uchiha broke his trust, Uchiha Makoto suddenly took Li Yi's arm and said, "Okay, don't say it anymore, let's go out quickly, don't interfere with their mission." After that, Uchiha Makoto took Li Yi, and forcibly pulled him out. Boom. The door was closed. Uchiha lost his trust and failed to shoot again. At this moment, he had a feeling that all his strength was hitting the cotton. This feeling made him very suffocated. As the saying goes, if you have emotions, you have to vent, if you don't vent, you will get sick. This sentence is very suitable for Uchiha's untrustworthiness at this time. If it is not young and healthy, then, at this time, he may have vomited blood with anger. Even so, under the violent ups and downs of Uchiha's untrustworthy chest, his throat suddenly became sweet. Although he swallowed it immediately, Uchiha broke his trust and knew that it was blood just now. Damn bastard. Uchiha coughed in disbelief, his face paled, and he murmured angrily. Brother, are you all right? The other two asked with concern. It's all right. Uchiha shook his head in disbelief. Start the mission, don't miss any corner. At the same time, outside the room, Uchiha Makoto looked at Lee Yi, breathed a fragrance, and said, Lee Yi, you deliberately angered him just now, but it's useless. You also know that with me here, you will not have any physical conflict. Lee Yi shook his head with a smile and said, actually, the power of emotions is very powerful. The third update. Today's update is over. The world is looking for silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 83 being monitored. First more. After 10 minutes. Uchiha broke their trust and walked out of Lee Yi's house. How is it? Uchiha Makoto got straight to the point and asked directly. Uchiha shook his head slightly in disbelief. No problem. That means, from now on, I can live here, right? Uchiha Makoto asked again. That's right. Uchiha's and Trustworthy 3 all nodded. Okay, sorry for your troubles. Uchiha Makoto smiled slightly and said, if that's the case, then go back. She has already started to drive people away. She didn't want to see Lee Yi clashing with the three of them again. Makoto sister, if there is any problem, please inform us in time. Uchiha glanced at Lee Yi in disbelief and said. Okay. Uchiha Makoto head taps. Uchiha turned his head to look at Lee Yi again and said, Lee Yi, if you let me know that you dare to do something too bad to Sister Makoto, I won't let you go. Hee, what is too much? What is too much? Lee Yi immediately laughed. Is it murder and arson, or violence against women? I've killed people, I've let go of fire, but I haven't experienced violence. Having said that, Lee Yi stuck out his tongue, licked his lips, and said with a smile, if I'm in a good mood, I might have to experience it. You dare. Uchiha's distrustful eyes widened in anger, staring at Lee with determination, his eyes as sharp as knives. Okay, the three of you hurry back, it's enough to have me here. At this time, Uchiha Makoto waved at the three and said. Makoto sister, you heard him just now, this kid doesn't speak human words. Uchiha said in disbelief. However, before he could finish speaking, Uchiha Makoto interrupted impatiently. Okay, what to do? I know better than you, the three of you hurry up and leave. Three can't figure out why Uchiha Makoto is so towards Lee Yi. Is it just because Lee Yi is her savior? But now, the situation is out of control. Therefore, they stopped talking, glared at Lee Yi, and then turned to leave. You look good, I applaud you. Lee Yi smiled at the three of them, with a hint of mockery in his smile. The three left angrily. After the three of them left, Uchiha Makoto sighed and asked helplessly, Lee Yi, why are you mad at them on purpose? The power of emotions is very powerful. Lee Yi repeated this sentence again. That's right, from the very beginning, Lee Yi was deliberately mad at them. Lee Yi knew that with Uchiha Makoto there would never be a physical conflict between him and the three. However, even so, Lee Yi couldn't let go of them. And the method is to deliberately anger them. As Lee Yi said, the power of emotions is very powerful. An emotionally fragile person, once the emotional fluctuations are too intense, then it is very likely to lead to death. Since ancient times, are there still few people who have been mad to death? Therefore, Lee Yi will deliberately anger them. Even if they can't fight, Lee Yi won't make it easier for them. In fact, what Lee Yi didn't know was that he had already succeeded. Uchiha broke his trust, he had already been beaten by him just now, and he successfully blew a mouthful of blood. Afterwards, Lee Yi and Uchiha Makoto walked into the room together. The room was neat and tidy and showed no signs of being damaged. Lee Yi said with a smile, I thought they were going to destroy my house. They dare not. Uchiha Makoto shook his head lightly. they just do routine things, and they won't do anything beyond the task. Lee Yi started checking every corner of the house. Because he was worried that Uchiha would break their trust with them, would he put a camera in his house? Although there is no camera in this world, there are many ninjutsu props similar to cameras. If Uchiha breaks his trust with them and puts a camera in this house, then from today onwards, his every move will be monitored. Lee Yi doesn't like this. However, after looking around, Lee Yi didn't find anything unusual. It seemed that they really just checked, and after finding that there was no problem, they left without doing anything in the house. What are you checking for? Uchiha Makoto asked. Nothing. Lee Yi shook his head slightly. Are you worried about being watched? Uchiha Makoto has a simple heart after all, so she can guess Lee Yi's worries. Hearing this, Lee Yi no longer concealed anything and nodded. They're just checking the house to see if there is anything dangerous. They won't leave anything in your house, so don't worry. Uchiha Makoto consoled. Lee Yi nodded. However, he always felt that something was not right. Makoto, as the princess of the Uchiha clan, is now living with a man. Logically speaking, any Uchiha clan will try their best to oppose it, so that the desire to protect is excessive. They are worried that Lee Yi will hurt Uchiha Makoto, so they will definitely try their best to monitor Lee Yi's every move. And now, Lee Yi didn't see anything out of the ordinary with the naked eye. However, this is the ninja world. In this world, there are many strange and fancy ninja tools. Some ninja tools cannot be seen at all with the naked eye. Therefore, Lee Yi is now suspecting that the three Uchiha distrustful people have placed some invisible surveillance ninja tools in his home. However, even if he doubted it, there was nothing Lee Yi could do. If only Violet were here. Lee Yi sighed inwardly. Violet is a perceptive ninja, she only needs to release her perceptive power, and if there is a ninja tool in this house, she will be able to find out. And now, Violet has been picked up. Lee Yi has never been one to sit still. Therefore, immediately, he began to think of other methods. However, after thinking about it for a while, Lee Yi didn't come up with any reasonable method. After all, he now only has 3 means. At this time, Uchiha Makoto asked, "When will we start training?" Lee Yi came back to his senses and said, "You can start training now." Okay. Uchiha Makoto nodded lightly, then she sat down on the sofa and said, "Now, I want to get to know your bloodline boundaries, sit down." After speaking, she stretched out her right hand and patted the side of her buttocks. Although men and women don't give and receive. But now, since the woman is taking the initiative, then, Lee Yi is disrespectful. Therefore, he sat beside Uchiha Makoto, next to her soft and plump XX. "Stretch out your hand," Uchiha Makoto said softly. 21:30 In the next update, the world asks for silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 84 Uchiha Makoto's Probe Part 2. Lee Yi did as he did. Uchiha Makoto held Lee Yi's hands gently and said at the same time, "Next, I'm going to inject my own chakra into your body. The process may be a little painful, so bear with it." Hearing this, Lee Yi frowned slightly. Inject chakra into your body. In other words, she wants to explore her own background. Lee Yi first thought for a moment. His biggest secret right now is the infinite evolution system. Especially when he uses the infinite evolution system, a panel that only he can see will appear in front of him. However, this world is not an ordinary world. So, Lee Yi was worried, would the infinite evolution system be seen by others? Lee Yi has always had this concern. And now, Uchiha Makoto uses her chakra to probe her body. It's an opportunity. Lee resolutely said, "I can take this opportunity to experiment to see if she can discover the existence of an infinite evolutionary system. Although this approach is a bit risky, it is worth doing so. If Uchiha Makoto can't discover the existence of an infinite evolutionary system, then everything is fine." If Uchiha Makoto can discover the existence of the wireless evolution system, then, starting today, Lee Yi will start to arrange some means. The infinite evolution system is his biggest secret and his greatest confidence. It is the so-called boring hair, and making a fortune is the last word. Before there is no absolute strength, Lee Yi will find ways to hide the existence of the infinite evolution system. Everyone knows the truth that every husband is innocent, and he is guilty. Therefore, after thinking for a while, Lee Yi nodded and said, "Okay, sorry to trouble you." Seeing that Lee Yi agreed, Uchiha Makoto just started. She lightly grabbed Lee Yi's hands, and the chakra in her body poured into Lee Yi's body along her two white jade hands. At this moment, Lee Yi's body produced a very subtle feeling. The whole body was crisp and numb, as if the current was passing through, but the current was not big, so Lee Yi didn't feel much pain. However, with the passage of time, this electric current ran around in the body, causing the body to reject it, so a strange yui color began to appear on Lee Yi's cheeks. Uchiha Makoto didn't seem to notice. She closed her eyes and said softly, "Lee Yi, try to call your bloodline boundaries." Okay. Lee Yi did not refuse. With a thought, he began to condense the ability of the door fruit. To use the devil fruit requires huge physical strength. Therefore, after Lee Yi started using the gate fruit, he could clearly feel that his power was rapidly draining like water. That feeling, as if I was running with all my strength. Lee Yi's breathing began to quicken. And with the increase of time, his breathing became more and more rapid, and a trace of sweat appeared on his forehead. After about 7 or 8 seconds. "Okay, stop," Uchiha Makoto said softly. Lee Yi immediately stopped using the power of the door fruit. He breathed a sigh of relief. Uchiha Makoto opened his eyes, then slowly released Lee Yi's hands, and said, "Your blood follows the boundaries, it's a bit strange." "Oh, what's so strange?" Lee Yi pretended to be surprised and asked. He wanted to see Uchiha Makoto's level. Uchiha Makoto touched his chin and said, "Your ability doesn't seem to use chakra." "Oh, not using chakra, what is that?" Lee Yi asked again deliberately. Uchiha Makoto suddenly looked up and looked at Lee Yi's face. Because the supply of chakra was stopped, the yui color on Lee Yi's face had disappeared. Uchiha Makoto said seriously, "Use your physical strength." Hearing this, Lee Yi's expression did not change. But in my heart, I was stunned. Uchiha Makoto can actually see the ability of the door fruit, is it using physical strength? However, thinking about it is also relieved. Because Lee Yi ate the devil fruit, the power of the devil fruit had penetrated into Lee Yi's blood. The ability of the door fruit is the ability of Lee Yi's body. Uchiha Makoto can understand Lee Yi's ability by probing Lee Yi's body, which is reasonable. This little girl is indeed a bit level. Lee Yi said, "I just don't know, can she detect the existence of the system?" Lee Yi intends to make Uchiha Makoto feel it again. However, before Lee Yi could speak, Uchiha Makoto said, "Your body is a little strange, I have to study it carefully and do it again." After speaking, Uchiha Makoto stretched out two pure white jade hands towards Lee Yi. Lee Yi also reached out and took Uchiha Makoto's jade hand. Uchiha Makoto didn't grumble at all, and immediately mobilized chakra and poured into Lee Yi's body. And Lee Yi hesitated for a moment. "Do you want to open the system?" Oneself is the host of the system, that is to say, the system is hosted in one's own body. Similar to the existence of parasites. Once the system is turned on, then, this parasite will be exposed. At that time, Uchiha Makoto may have a high chance of feeling the existence of the system. Lee Yi thought for a moment. Final decision, turn on the system. Instead of exposing it later, it is better to figure it out now. Therefore, Lee Yi said in his heart, "Open the system." Ding! Go back to the host, the system has been opened. A crisp voice sounded in Lee Yi's mind. A translucent panel that could only be seen by Lee Yi appeared in front of Lee Yi's eyes. Lee Yi opened his eyes, not looking at the system panel, but at Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Makoto was closing his eyes at this moment, carefully feeling Lee Yi's body. I have to say, Uchiha Makoto is really pretty. The skin is fair, silky like jade, and the long and dense eyelashes are sparkling, which looks very moving. Lee Yi suddenly had an impulse, kiss her. However, this impulse was not as strong as it was for Conan at first. Because at that time, the faces of Conan and Lee Yi were very close, and no matter how Lee Yi shifted his gaze at that time, they could not avoid Conan. And now, Uchiha Makoto's face is not close to Lee Yi. Moreover, as long as Lee Yi moved his eyes a little bit, he couldn't see her anymore. Therefore, he can suppress the impulse in his heart. Lee Yi has been driving the infinite evolution system. Uchiha Makoto closed his eyes, and on that beautiful face, a complex expression of doubt, puzzlement, surprise coexisted. Seeing this expression, Lee Yi couldn't help but feel anxious. Did this woman detect the existence of the system? Second update. The next update will be later. The world asks for silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 85-Fitness Coach. First more. After a moment, Uchiha Makoto stopped the supply of chakra, and then let go of Lin Chen's hands. Yuhi color on Lee Yi's face disappeared as quickly as the tide ebbs. Uchiha Makoto took a breath, raised his right hand, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said, "Your physique is indeed a bit strange." Lee Yi did not reply, but quietly waited for her next sentence. Uchiha Makoto continued, "The general bloodline limit requires chakra to use, but your bloodline limit requires physical strength, so I think that the speciality of your bloodline limit is because of the speciality of your body, and just now, I seem to have a feeling that your body is different from that of ordinary people." "What's the difference?" Lee Yi asked directly. "Can't you just sell it?" Uchiha Makoto shook his head slightly and replied, "I'm not sure, I just have this feeling." A woman's sixth sense. Lee Yi smiled. "So to speak." Uchiha Makoto has no objection. Lee Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. If it was because he turned on the system that Uchiha Makoto noticed something was wrong, then things were going to be troublesome. Lee Yi didn't want them to be aware of the existence of the system when he fought against Uchiha Madara, Six Paths Immortals and others in the future. Therefore, Lee Yi stretched out his hands again and said, "Can you sense it again? Maybe we can find the source of what's wrong." Uchiha Makoto said, "My chakra is different from your chakra. After all, I have injected my chakra into your body 3 times in one day, which may cause harm to your body." "What harm?" Lee Yi frowned slightly. "Dizziness, headache, body aches, muscle weakness, etc." Uchiha Makoto said. "Scare me." Lee Yi breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought it was a serious danger." "It was just this. When I was still on Earth, after running the 1000-meter men's sports test, I would feel dizzy, sore, and weak in my limbs the next day. Therefore, Lee Yi directly said, firmly, and seriously, "Come on, I'm not afraid, just let the storm come more violently." Actually, he was joking when he said that. He wanted to liven up the atmosphere. However, Uchiha Makoto felt that Lee Yi was serious. At this moment, she looked at Lee Yi's firm and serious face, and her heart moved slightly. It was as if a dusty string had been quietly plucked again. Looking at Lee Yi's handsome young and angular face, Uchiha Makoto can't help but be a little crazy. But the next moment, she hurried back to her senses, lowered her head slightly, and stopped looking at Lee Yi. She breathed a sigh of relief and asked herself, "Uchiha Makoto, what's wrong with you? Why are you always distracted these days?" However, Uchiha Makoto didn't think about it, but took a deep breath and gently held Lee Yi's hands. An invisible force, following her soft hands, entered Lee Yi's body again. Lee Yi had already shut down the system. Uchiha Makoto could still sense something was wrong after shutting down the system. This process lasted about half a minute. Uchiha Makoto's brows were slightly wrinkled. After half a minute, she took a deep breath, retracted the chakra, and released her hands. Li Yi stared at her. Still something wrong, she said. Li Yi breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Uchiha Makoto is not aware of the existence of the system at all. Whether he turned the system on, or turned it off, Uchiha Makoto felt something was wrong. So, she didn't notice the system. Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly, looked at Li Yi and asked, "Why do I feel you are relieved?" Li Yi shook his head, "Nothing." But he said in his heart, "Can I be relieved? You have input chakra into my body, but you still haven't noticed the existence of the infinite evolution system. Do you think I should be happy, or should I be very happy? Since I have understood your bloodline limit, then, next, I will formulate a detailed training method for you, and strive to use the bloodline limit in 2 weeks, not to say that you are proficient, but, after using it, you will not faint." Quote. Uchiha Makoto said seriously. Li Yi nodded, "Thank you." "No thanks." But Uchiha Makoto shook his head, moved his butt slightly, moved away from Li Yi calmly, and said, "You are my savior. I also promised you that I will help you train your ability, and I will do what I say." "Then when do we start training?" Li Yi asked. In fact, he can also train with Might Dai. But, to be honest, in Li Yi's eyes, Might Dai is just a lunatic. He feared that under Might Dai's leadership, he would over-exercise, suffer from muscle lysis, and die. You must know that when he was still on the earth, he heard of many people who went to the gym the day before, exercised too much, and got muscle lysis the next day, and they became useless and die soon. Li Yi didn't know the similarities and differences between people in this world and people on Earth. However, everything has to have a degree. Training with Might Dai is just too much. Therefore, Li Yi chose Uchiha Makoto. For Li Yi, Uchiha Makoto is a professional fitness coach. She will formulate a detailed, specific and comprehensive training method for Li Yi, which can not only ensure the training time, speed and efficiency, but also ensure the safety and health of the body. Uchiha Makoto stood up from the sofa and said, "After an hour, I will work out a training method that suits you. During this hour, don't disturb me. If anyone comes to me, you say I am sleeping. Let them come back later." Quote. After saying that, Uchiha Makoto twisted his little butt and walked into Li Yi's room without looking back. Looking at Uchiha Makoto's graceful figure, Li Yi smiled with satisfaction and said in his heart, "Sure enough, having a fitness coach to assist is easy." When he was on Earth in his previous life, Li Yi didn't exercise very often. Although he also went to the gym, the purpose of his going to the gym was to hook up with girls. You know, in the gym, there are many girls with beautiful faces and beautiful bodies. Li Yi still remembers that when he hooked up with a female fitness trainer back then, that feeling, tisk tisk, is really beyond words. Closer to home, now, Uchiha Makoto will formulate a scientific and systematic training method for Li Yi, so that compared to training alone, both training efficiency and safety are much higher. P.S. The first update. The next update is around 0:100. Today, a Wuhan pneumonia patient came to our hospital. As a doctor in the world, he worked overtime until more than 9 o'clock in the evening before going home. When he got home, he wrote this chapter. Chapter 86_ How many previous hosts? Second more. Li Yi sat on the sofa and waited quietly. In the eyes of outsiders, Li Yi at this time is doing nothing and being bored. However, in Li Yi's eyes, there is a panel that can only be seen by him. Host name, Li Yi. Age, 20 years old. Sex, male. Strength, mortals with relatively strong physical fitness. Weapon, Dinghai Shinpin. Mission, kill Uchiha Fugaku, capture Uchiha Makoto's heart, change Konan's attitude towards himself. Remaining chance to evolve, once. How to use this evolutionary opportunity? Li Yi narrowed his eyes and thought. In fact, he had already prepared it before. That is, if Uchiha Makoto can perceive the existence of the system, then Li Yi will use this evolution opportunity to evolve the system. That's right, he wants to evolve the infinite evolution system. Since the system says that it can evolve everything, then it must be able to evolve itself. However, at the time, Li Yi did not ask this question. And now, Li Yi is free, so he asked in his heart, "System, can I use the chance of evolution to evolve you?" Ding! Go back to the host. Logically speaking, this is okay. The crisp sound of the system immediately sounded in Li Yi's mind. I don't want to listen to reason, I want to listen to reality. Li Yi said lightly. System replied, back to the host, the system doesn't know about your question. Oh, why? Li Yi asked in surprise, could it be that the people who used you before have not evolved you? System replied, go back to the host, that's right. So it is. Li Yi nodded. The direction of evolution is uncertain, both good and bad. Therefore, it is reasonable that the predecessors did not evolve the infinite evolution system. Oh, by the way, I've always been curious, how is your former host doing now? Has he become a big boss in all the worlds? Li Yi asked. It has only been 6 or 7 days since the infinite evolution system was obtained. And in these 6 or 7 days, he was in a coma for 3 days. So, in fact, the time for him to obtain the infinite evolution system is only 3 or 4 days. For 3 or 4 days, Li Yi had a lot of questions and didn't ask them. But now, Li Yi has freed up the space, so he will ask all the doubts in his heart one by one. System replied, back to the host, there are a total of 8 hosts who use the infinite evolution system in the past, and these 8 people are now dead. Hearing this, Li Yi's eyes widened. Are all dead? You fucking tease me. With such a heaven-defying artifact, how could he still die? However, there is no need for the system to deceive him. So Li Yi asked, how did they die? System replied, back to the host, the first host was killed in battle, the second host was assassinated while sleeping, and the third host was when he was having sex with a wife. Everyone died, the fourth host fell into the enemy's trap and died. The system said a long list. Li Yi was speechless. In his opinion, these 8 people are killing themselves. Toss yourself to death. With the infinite evolution system, I feel that I am the protagonist, I am invincible in the world, I am the most powerful, so I have no fear, and anyone dares to provoke. In Li Yi's view, this is an extremely stupid, mentally retarded, and stupid behavior. Yes, with the system, it is indeed possible to become the most invincible and powerful person in the world. However, it is only possible. You know, even if there is an artifact, it takes time to develop. Sun Wukong, Nua was bred out of the heaven patching stone, how awesome, but doesn't he have to learn art from a teacher? However, these 8 people did not have this consciousness at all. Especially the third term, it's just nonsense. Do you think you are fucking Cao Cao? Even Cao Cao, before he became a trend, was still very cautious and very stubborn. Actually, in my opinion, you are an irresponsible system. After they get you, they swell up like this, so you won't persuade them. Li Yi said. System replied, return to the host, do not advise. Li Yi was speechless again. It seems that this system really only asks what to answer, just one tendon. Li Yi asked, why not persuade? System replied, back to the host, the system is not qualified or authorized to persuade the host. Li Yi frowned slightly and asked, why? System replied, go back to the host, because every host is a free individual. What they will become and what they will do with the system are their own decisions, and the system has no right to interfere. Freedom. Li Yi smiled. Freedom without any restraint, is it still called freedom? System replied, back to the host, I don't know. Li Yi was speechless. This system really asks and answers. Could it be that it didn't hear it just now? What I said was not a question, but a rhetorical question. Well, it really didn't hear it. Li Yi no longer wanted to talk to the system, and said in his heart, "Close the system." Ding! System confirms shutdown. With the crisp sound of the system, he exited his mind, and the panel in front of Li Yi's eyes gradually disappeared. Li Yi narrowed his eyes, lost in thought. He still has another chance to evolve, so how should he use it? It is to keep and save, to prepare for the future evolution of your body. Or use it now. Li Yi pondered. However, just as Li Yi was thinking, a knock on the door suddenly came from outside the door. Boom. The voice is not small, it sounds very violent. Li Yi frowned slightly. Who is this point? Li Yi got up, walked, and opened the door. Standing outside the door was a woman. She has beautiful long Yuhi-colored hair, a hairpin on the left bun, and a wrist guard on her left wrist. She looks incredibly beautiful. Li Yi opened the door, she stared at Yuhi on the other side of her. However, just after Li Yi opened the door, the Yuhi-haired woman frowned, looked Li Yi up and down, and then directly asked, "Makoto is in your house?" Li Yi nodded. That's right. Hearing this, Yuhi made the woman frown, then stretched out her right hand to push Li Yi, and said, "Get out of the way, I want to go in." Li Yi shook his head directly. "Sorry, this is my house, you can't come in without my permission." Saying that, Li Yi grabbed the Yuhi woman's wrist and stopped her. For this kind of physical contact, Yuhi found that the woman was not bored by Uchiha Makoto, but smiled and said, "Dare to speak to me in such a tone, you are the second one, it is interesting." P.S. Second more. In the next chapter, the world will try to write as much as possible. I have to continue to see patients tomorrow morning. I thought I would be able to take the annual leave today, but I didn't expect that we also have patients here. Chapter 87 _ Guarding for Girlfriends. First more. Hearing Yuhi's words from a woman, Li Yi couldn't help but wonder, who was the first? However, Li Yi didn't ask such a boring question, but looked at Yuhi's woman and said lightly, "Uchiha Makoto is sleeping now, I hope you don't disturb her, if you have something to do, talk to her after she wakes up. Not too late. Sleep." Yuhi raised the corner of the woman's eyes. "Sleep at this time? Are you kidding me? It's still morning, and in general, the people of Konoha village are already awake by now. However, Uchiha Makoto is actually sleeping now." Yuhi made the woman stare at Li with her suspicious eyes, and said, "Did she spend the night at your house last night?" From her point of view, Uchiha Makoto must have been tired last night, so she will only go to bed now. As for what she was doing, she didn't know. But she was curious. You know, a man and a woman live under the same roof, and there are only a few things they do at night. By Yuhi's woman's suspicious eyes, Li Yi did not answer, but chose to remain silent. Moreover, Li Yi is still holding the wrist of the Yuhi-haired woman. Yuhi gave the woman a smile and asked, "Aren't you going to let go of me?" Li Yi let go of her wrist. "Is my skin slippery?" Yuhi asked the woman with a smile while touching her wrist. Hearing this question, Li Yi first blinked, then pretended to be thoughtful, and said seriously, "It's really smooth, but it's not the same as Makoto's. Makoto's skin is very soft, while yours is very elastic." Oh. Hearing this, Yuhi raised the corner of the woman's eyes slightly and said, "Have you touched her?" Li Yi nodded with a smile. Still holding hands 3 times. Yuhi looked at the woman and became suspicious again, thinking, "This shouldn't be. What kind of temperament Makoto is, I know very well, how could she let a man touch her body? Even if this man was her savior, she couldn't be so casual, right? However, there is no need for this man to lie to me." Yuhi-hair woman can't figure it out. But she didn't think much of it. She is straight-minded and violent. She didn't know about these intriguing things, and she didn't bother to know about them. She prefers to solve problems with violence rather than with words. Therefore, she looked at Li Yi, smiled, and said in a soft voice, "If you don't let me go, then I'll be rude to you." After speaking, she slowly clenched her right hand, and Yuhi's hair full of hair seemed to stand up at this moment, like a root of peppers facing the sky. And it's Yuhi-colored chili peppers. See this scene. Li Yi squinted his eyes. Then, sideways. Seriously, please come in. Yuhi made the woman startled and blinked. She didn't expect that Li Yi would be so cowardly. Is such a man really Makoto's savior? How on earth did he rescue Makoto from the land of wolves and leopards like the land of rain? However, Yuhi didn't think much about the woman, but took a step forward and walked into Li Yi's house. Looking at the neat and spotless house, the Yuhifa woman blinked and said curiously, "It seems that you are a person who loves cleanliness very much." Over the top. Li Yi smiled slightly. If you let her know that it was not Li Yi who cleaned up the house, but someone of her own clan, how would she feel? Which room is Makoto sleeping in now? Yuhi asked the woman to turn her head to look at Li Yi. Li Yi pointed to his room. Yuhi made the woman without the slightest hesitation and walked directly to Li Yi's room. Li Yi asked, "Are you sure you want to go in? She's sleeping now. If you wake her up, she'll be very angry when she wakes up." Hearing this, Yuhi made the woman stop. Then, she turned her head, looked at Li Yi, smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm good friends with her. No matter how bad she gets up, she won't text me." Okay. Li Yi shrugged. Yuhi sent a quick word to a woman and walked quickly to Li Yi's room. However, when opening the door, Yuhi made the woman's movements, obviously a lot more cautious. Obviously, although she said it easily in words, in practice, she was still worried about disturbing Uchiha Makoto's rest. As expected of her best friend, this woman really cares about Uchiha Makoto. Seeing Yuhi's woman carefully opening the door without making any sound, Li Yi secretly smiled. At this time, the Yuhifa woman had already opened the door. Li Yi shrugged. Because he knew that his lies would be exposed. But he wasn't worried either. After all, this lie was told by Uchiha Makoto. Even if Yuhi made a woman angry, she wouldn't attack herself. However, Li Yi is well aware of Yuhi's temperament of women. Therefore, Li Yi had already anticipated Yuhi's Hidong lion's roar from a woman. However, the expected Hidong roar did not appear in Li Yi's ears. On the contrary, Yuhi sent a woman's gaze, and after looking around in Li Yi's room, she retracted it, and then she slowly closed the door, moving carefully without making any sound. After closing the door, Yuhi sent a woman to Li Yi, and his voice became very small, and said, "I thought you were lying to me, but Makoto was actually sleeping." As soon as these words came out, Li Yi blinked. Really sleeping? How is this possible? Uchiha Makoto making a training plan for me. How could she be sleeping? At this moment, two guesses emerged in Li Yi's heart. 1. Yuhi made a woman and Uchiha Makoto teamed up to play tricks on herself. 2. Uchiha Makoto immediately got under the covers when she heard Yuhi's woman coming. Yuhi made the woman, consciously, sitting on the sofa and brewed a pot of fragrant tea for herself. After taking a sip of tea, Yuhi sent the woman to put the teacup on the table, then patted the sofa next to her butt, and said, "Little brother, sit here." Li Yi blinked. Why did these two sisters like this? Same location, the same action. Really worthy of a girlfriend. However, in the end, Li Yi didn't move, but stood there, looking at Yuhi and asking the woman, "What do you want to do?" "I want to get to know you." Yuhi made the woman smile and said. Li Yi shook his head. "It's no use getting to know me, you might as well get to know the enemy country." "No, it's useful to know you." Yuhi made the woman shook her head flatly and said, "You are Makoto's crush, and I am Makoto's best friend. My best friend is going to get married. As a best friend, I must give her a good check." P.S. Some readers in Weixin asked me if I was a real doctor. Answer: yes, the world is a respiratory physician. Before 2200 in the next update, ask for silver tickets plus ask for a reward. Chapter 88_Hook Up With Her Part 2. Hearing Yuhi's words from the woman, Li Yi blinked. Then, he turned on the system. A translucent panel that could only be seen by him appeared in front of him. Mission: Kill Uchiha Fugaku, capture Uchiha Makoto's heart, change Conan's attitude towards himself. Capturing Uchiha Makoto's heart. This quest still exists. Everyone says that best friends know best friends. But now it looks like that's not the case. I really thought Uchiha Makoto was in love with me just now. Li Yi turned off the system, looked at Yuhi's woman, shook his head and said, Uchiha Makoto and I are just ordinary friends, I'm not his ideal. Oh, ordinary friends. Yuhi sent the woman obviously in disbelief. If it's just an ordinary friend, how could she live with you regardless of all objections? If it's just an ordinary friend, then why is she still sleeping now? You said, what did the two of you do last night? I am her savior. Li Yi replied. This is true, but her attitude towards you now is not her attitude towards her savior. Yuhi said the woman leisurely. Li Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. He found that this Yuhi-haired woman was indeed different from Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Makoto doesn't talk much. This woman has a lot to say. Uchiha Makoto has a relatively soft character. This woman has a very tough character. I have to say that these two women's personalities, temperaments, words and deeds are very complementary. No wonder they became best friends. Li Yi sat on the sofa opposite Yuhi's woman and said, I think you misunderstood the relationship between me and her. I and her are just ordinary friends, she lives with me just for. Quote. However, before Li Yi finished speaking, Yuhi sent the woman to pick up Li Yi's words and said, I know, it's just to train you, right? Li Yi nodded. But that's not the reason. There are so many ninjas in our village. Every ninja has a teacher, and every teacher and teacher is training ninjas, but I don't see any students living with the teacher. Yuhi said to the woman. To this question, Li Yi replied lightly, Uchiha Makoto wants to train me all the time and supervise me all the time, so he lives with me. Hearing Li Yi's answer, Yuhi touched the woman's chin. Well, the answer is very fluent, you and Makoto have said this before. No. Li Yi shook his head. It seems that you are a man of eloquence. Yuhi said to the woman. Li Yi narrowed his eyes. He knew that Yuhi's woman was trying to understand herself. However, Li Yi didn't want to be understood by her. Even if she is a big beauty. Therefore, Li Yi said directly, Uchiha Makoto is sleeping now, so I advise you to go. After she wakes up, it's not too late for you to come again. Yuhi heard this, the woman directly shook her head. No, I'll just wait here, who knows if she will be sleeping when I come next time. Well then, whatever you want. Li Yi shrugged. Checked the time. Uchiha Makoto says she develops a training plan, which takes an hour. Now, there are less than 10 minutes until an hour. So, Li Yi estimated that in 10 minutes, Uchiha Makoto should come out. Li Yi sat opposite the Yuhi's woman and fell silent. Yuhi looked at Li Yi up and down, and after a while, she said, well, yes, you are really handsome, but it's a pity that you are too feminine, not my type. Because Li Yi has been weak since he was a child, and he doesn't bask in the sun often, his body is thin and his skin is pale, giving people a feeling of being weak. And this should be the femininity that Yuhi's hair woman said. As for Yuhi's comments on women, Li Yi smiled disdainfully. He knew that Yuhi's women like Namikaze Minato. As the saying goes, there is shishi in the eyes of the beholder. Namikaze Minato is a handsome and sunny guy, so of course Yuhi-haired women like sunny and handsome men. However, if Li Yi's years of experience are put on Namikaze Minato, then Namikaze Minato will probably become a calm and gloomy handsome guy. Only those who have experienced darkness know how terrifying the darkness is, and how precious the light after dawn is. I remember, your name is Li Yi, right? Yuhi asked the woman again. Li Yi nodded slightly. That's right. Li Yi, there is something I have to tell you. Yuhi said to the woman. Lin Chen nodded. Yuhi, the woman continued. In our village, there are many people who like Makoto. If you want to pursue Makoto, then you have to strengthen your competitiveness. Yuhi made a woman's expression, very serious. Hear this. Li Yi just nodded and did not refute. Because of his attention, most of them are focused on the abdomen of Yuhi's hair woman. QB, 9 tails, is it sealed there? Li Yi knew that in the body of the Yuhifa woman, a tailed beast was sealed, and it was also the most powerful tailed beast in the world, QB, 9 tails, Kurama. To be honest, Li Yi now has an urge to pull QB, 9 tails, Kurama out of the Yuhifa woman's body, and then subdue it. You know, if you can gain the trust of QB, 9 tails, then you can start the cool and cool QB, 9 tails mode. When Li Yi was watching Hokage, he was very envious of Uzumaki Naruto's QB, 9 tails mode and often fantasized about how great it would be if he could turn on the QB, 9 tails mode. However, at that time, Li Yi also knew that the QB, 9 tails model was his dream after all, no, delusional. But now, everything is different. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to realize this dream yet, but sooner or later, he will definitely realize this dream. At this moment, Yuhifa woman actually leaned on Li Yi's side, and even hugged Li Yi's shoulders. She smiled and said, "Don't hide it from me, what the hell did you do with Makoto last night?" Li Yi frowned slightly. He found that this woman's character was really carefree. I don't care if the male or female is granted or not at all. But Li Yi also knows a truth, carefree is a friend, and careful is love. It was precisely because she was so carefree that Li Yi knew that she had nothing to seduce herself. Say, what did you two do last night? Yuhi urges the woman all the time. However, Li Yi hasn't replied yet. Crunch. Li Yi's room was pushed open. Uchiha Makoto came out of the room. Seeing that Li Yi and Yuhi's woman were hooking their shoulders, Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly and asked, "What are you two doing?" Oops, Makoto-san is jealous. Yuhi's woman hurriedly pushed Li Yi away, and at the same time didn't forget to make a joke. This is the second update. The third update is around 2300. Chapter 89-admit. Third more. Yuhifa woman immediately pushed Li Yi away, then stood up and hugged Uchiha Makoto. Uchiha Makoto stretched out his right hand, stood in front of him, and said, "Kushina, what are you doing here?" Yuhi made the woman stop and said, "I'll come and see you, can't I?" "You don't have a job today?" Uchiha Makoto asked. Yuhi shook her head, smiled and said, "Of course there is a task, but we will gather after half an hour. Before that, I wanted to come and see you, but I didn't expect you to be sleeping. It seems that last night, you did some kind of hard work." When she was speaking, she also glanced at Li Yi, with a hint of cunning in her eyes. Apparently, she was making fun of Uchiha Makoto and Li Yi. Li Yi frowned slightly. She felt that Uchiha Makoto would definitely refute. After all, this kind of thing is about reputation. But didn't expect. Uchiha Makoto actually dipped his head lightly. Li Yi was taken aback. Yuhi made the woman also stunned. "What does, mean?" "Admit." Uzumaki Kushina swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and a strange look appeared on that beautiful face. These two people, last night, actually did some unspeakable shameful things. Actually, Uchiha Makoto didn't lie. Last night, she had been exercising until late at night, which caused her back pain. She really did some hard work last night. After that, Uchiha Makoto looked at Li Yi, pointed at the Yuhi hair woman, and said, "Li Yi, this is my good friend, Uzumaki Kushina." "Long-awaited great name," Li Yi said with a smile. Uzumaki Kushina finally recovered from the shock, blinked his beautiful eyes, and asked curiously, "Oh, You heard of me before. Hem. Li Yi nodded lightly. In fact, Li Yi also wanted to say, I have seen the way you looked when you died. Uzumaki Kushina laughed, patted his chest, and said proudly, it seems that I am quite famous, ha ha ha. Uchiha Makoto pointed at Li Yi again and said, his name is Li Yi, and he is my savior. Sister Makoto, you don't need to introduce us, we already met just now. Uzumaki Kushina smiled and said. Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly. Because in her mind, unexpectedly, the scene of Li Yi and Uzumaki Kushina, hooking shoulders and backs, appeared just now. Thinking of that scene made Uchiha Makoto feel a little unhappy in his heart. Sister Makoto, this guy is not bad, but his strength is a little weak. Uzumaki Kushina gave Uchiha Makoto a sly smile and said. However, Uchiha Makoto said directly, his future strength will not be weaker than yours. Makoto-san, it hurts my heart when you talk about me like that. Uzumaki Kushina clutched his heart with a look of grief on his face. I'm just telling the truth. Uchiha Makoto said lightly. Okay, I won't be stubborn with you. Uzumaki Kushina waved his hand. Uchiha Makoto glanced at Uzumaki Kushina's lower abdomen, his face suddenly became serious, and asked, have you encountered any problems recently? No. Uzumaki Kushina shook his head slightly, it's been quite honest recently. That's fine. Uchiha Makoto nodded lightly, if you encounter trouble, be sure to come to me, I will help you, and even if I can't help you, I will ask my father to help you. Hey, it's Makoto-san, you're good to me. Uzumaki Kushina hugged Uchiha Makoto. They didn't hide these words, but said them directly in front of Li Yi. Because they felt that Li Yi must not understand what they said. However, how could Li Yi not understand them? They must be talking about Kyubi, Nine Tails. It is well known that the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan can control the tailed beast. And now, the most powerful tailed beast, Kyubi, Nine Tails, Kurama, is sealed in the body of Uzumaki Kushina. Once Kurama runs away, the Uchiha family can suppress Kurama. Li Yi doesn't know if there is a Mangekyo Sharingan in the current Uchiha clan. However, Li Yi is very clear that among the current Uchiha clan, there are 3 Tomo Sharingan. As long as there are 3 Tomo Sharingan, then, with a suitable timing, the tailed beast can be easily controlled. And now, Uchiha Makoto says, even if she can't help, her father can. The implication of this sentence, Uchiha Makoto's father has at least 3 Tomo Sharingan. At least. As the saying goes, 2 women play 1 show. Between women, there are always endless topics to talk about. Uchiha Makoto and Uzumaki Kushina, talking about the family words between women. The 2 women were sitting on the sofa opposite, and they were both beautiful women, looking particularly seductive. Uzumaki Kushina is 3 or 4 years younger than Uchiha Makoto, but this does not affect the relationship between the 2 of them. Although Uchiha Makoto's attitude towards Uzumaki Kushina is very bland, Li Yi can still feel that Uchiha Makoto really cares about Uzumaki Kushina. In the blink of an eye, half an hour passed. Uzumaki Kushina got up and said, Makoto-san, I'm leaving. Pay attention to safety, life is the most important. Uchiha Makoto reminded. Don't worry, the vitality of our Uzumaki clan is very tenacious. Uzumaki Kushina patted chest, and smiled. Then, she turned her head again and looked at Li Yi. Her face suddenly became serious, and said in a low voice, Li Yi, don't let your sister Makoto expect you. Li Yi smiled brightly. Don't worry, I will definitely be better than you in the future. Uzumaki Kushina choked. The expectation she said was not this expectation. Although this is also the expectation of Uchiha Makoto. However, the expectation she said was Uchiha Makoto's determination to entrust herself to Li Yi. From Uzumaki Kushina's point of view, Uchiha Makoto must have liked Li Yi very, very, very much, so he moved in with Lee Yi regardless of everyone's opposition. Uzumaki Kushina wants Lee Yi to treat Uchiha Makoto well, and don't let her resolve. But I didn't expect that Lee Yi would answer like this. Uzumaki Kushina can't help but get a little angry. This guy must be pretending to be stupid. HMPH, next time I see this guy, I must take care of him and let him know how good I am. At this point, Uzumaki Kushina's full head of Yuhi's hair seems to be standing up. Uchiha Makoto knew Uzumaki Kushina very well, and seeing the change in her expression, Uchiha Makoto knew that she must be thinking about those things. Therefore, Uchiha Makoto said immediately, "You hurry up and carry out the task, don't waste time." After she finished speaking, she pushed Uzumaki Kushina straight out. Throw people straight away. Wuhan pneumonia outbreak, everyone pay attention to protection. As a doctor, the world does not want to receive its own readers' patients. This is the third one. Update ends today. The next update will be around 12 o'clock noon tomorrow. The world seeks silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 90_ Who is more beautiful? First more. Uzumaki Kushina was kicked out. Uchiha Makoto closed the door and said, "My friend is just like that. She has a carefree personality. Don't worry about it or think about it too much. She has a crush on her." Lee Yi smiled slightly. Her crush is named Namikaze Minato, right? You know him. Uchiha Makoto was a little surprised. Have met once. Lee Yi said, "Konoha village sent him to rescue you, but I was a step ahead of me." So it is. Uchiha Makoto touched his chin, and the head lightly tapped. If it hadn't been said by Lee Yi, then she probably would never have known about it. But then again. Lee Yi said again, "Are you and Uzumaki Kushina really close friends?" "We have known each other for many years and the relationship is not bad," Uchiha Makoto said. Then, Uchiha Makoto asked again, "Are you interested in her?" "I told you just now that she already has an interest. I advise you not to have any thoughts about her. I know she is very beautiful, but she is not you. Accessible." Hearing this, Lee Yi was taken aback and blinked. "When did I say I was going to touch her? You know, even you, I don't want to get involved." However, Lee Yi did not refute Uchiha Makoto, because he knew that this kind of thing, the more you explain it, the more chaotic it becomes. Therefore, Lee Yi directly changed the subject and said, "You are right, she is really beautiful." Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly. Lee Yi say such a thing. What does he want to do? Is he really interested in Uzumaki Kushina? And, for some unknown reason, she now wants to ask Lee Yi, "Is she beautiful or am I beautiful? Who is more beautiful, me or her?" The next moment, Uchiha Makoto was frightened by his own thoughts. "Uchiha Makoto, how can you have such a ridiculous idea?" Immediately, she put this thought aside. "Don't worry, I'm not interested in her. And I won't take a woman from Namikaze Minato," Lee Yi said with a smile. Uchiha Makoto breathed a sigh of relief. However, Lee Yi added, "However, if she takes the initiative to send her to the door, then I will not refuse anyone who comes. After all, I am neither incompetent nor a fool eunuch." Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto suddenly laughed. Smile very disdainful. "Take the initiative to deliver to your door. What a joke. You know, Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato not only have a relationship for many years, but Namikaze Minato is also Uzumaki Kushina's savior. The two of them have experienced a lot of things, time can witness. How could she possibly like you? Great joke. Unless the sun comes out from the west. No, even if the sun comes out from the west, she can't possibly like you." Of course, Uchiha Makoto knew that such words were hurtful, so she didn't say it, but just said, "Don't be delusional, she can't like other men except Namikaze Minato." However, for Uchiha Makoto's firm words, Lee Yi smiled disdainfully and said, "Everything is not absolute, don't say it to death, because who knows what the future will be like." If Li Yi hadn't come to this world, then everything would have developed according to the original plot. But now, there is the variable of Li Yi. It is no exaggeration to say that the existence of Li Yi has brought countless possibilities to the world. Besides, Li Yi is not strong yet. Li Yi becomes stronger in the future, then the world will be completely changed. Therefore, whether Uzumaki Kushina can continue this relationship with Namikaze Minato is uncertain. Of course, Li Yi still sincerely wishes that the two of them can grow old together and give birth to a precious son early. All in all, Li Yi will not take a shot at Uzumaki Kushina. Although Uzumaki Kushina is a big beauty. However, Li Yi is not a big pig's hoof that can't pull out his legs when he sees a beautiful woman. I hope the system doesn't send that kind of strange task this time. Li Yi opened the system panel. There are still 3 tasks. Li Yi breathed a sigh of relief. If the system allows him to capture Uzumaki Kushina's heart again, then Li Yi will be speechless. He didn't want to open the harem. He just wants to improve his strength. Li Yi is not that kind of stinky man with bad taste. Uchiha Makoto stood opposite Li Yi and saw Li Yi staring at her blankly. However, she felt that Li Yi was not looking at her. Because Li Yi's eyes are wrong. Uchiha Makoto raised his fair little hand, shook it in front of Li Yi's eyes, and asked, "What are you looking at?" Li Yi came back to his senses. "Look at Uchiha Makoto close at hand." Li Yi blinked. He was looking at the system panel just now. Although it was only a momentary daze, it was still captured by Uchiha Makoto. Li Yi can't always answer such stupid words as, "I didn't see anything." Therefore, Li Yi's brain twitched and he replied, "I'm looking at you and Uzumaki Kushina, who is more beautiful." As soon as he finished saying this, Li Yi regretted it. "How did you say such rascal words?" Li Yi immediately said, "I finally came to a conclusion that you are both beautiful, each with their own characteristics. There is no one who is more beautiful than the other." Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto's beautiful cheeks were not easily perceptible slightly. But then, her complexion returned to normal, and she said lightly, "Don't think about these things, it's better to empty your mind and think about how to become stronger." Hearing this sentence, Li Yi just wanted to say, "I'm thinking about this all the time, okay." Uchiha Makoto handed Li Yi a piece of paper. "It's full of words." She explained, "From today, until 3 days later, you will exercise according to the above method. During these 3 days, no matter day or night, I will supervise you." Li Yi took the blank paper and looked down. It says various sports, running, push-ups, leapfrogs, pull-ups, and more. However, in the ninja world, the names of these projects are not the same as the names on Earth. For example, pull-up, but in the world of ninja, it is only called pull-up, and there is no word up. Li Yi glanced over it roughly. In the end, Li Yi frowned slightly. Because he found that the training intensity on this piece of paper is very large. No, very big. For him, it was unbearable. Uchiha Makoto continued, "After 3 days, whether you can stick to it or not, I will make a new exercise plan for you. The new exercise plan will only be more tiring than the current exercise plan." Hearing this, Li Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. Uchiha Makoto said, "I know, this plan is really tiring, and you may not agree to it. However, everything is difficult at the beginning, I really hope you can stick to it. Of course, you can also refuse, I understand you, the decision is up to you, your hand." However, before Uchiha Makoto finished speaking, Li Yi said with a smile, "A fool would waste such a detailed and thorough training plan." The first update. The next one is around 2000 in the evening. Happy New Year to everyone in the world. Chapter 91-Trust. Second more. I have to say that Uchiha Makoto's plan for Li Yi is indeed very detailed and thorough. Including what exercise to do at each time, how many times to do exercise, or written in detail. Although the intensity of this exercise is very devilish, once he can persist, Li Yi's strength will definitely change by leaps and bounds after 2 weeks. Thinking of this, Li Yi can't help but look forward to what level his own strength will reach after 2 weeks. Is it genin or chunin? You must know that even though Li Yi's own strength is only a genin, with Li Yi's existing means, he can exert a combat power similar to that of Jonin. After all, neither the Si Ding Shen needle nor the devil fruit are covered. However, in order to achieve this kind of strength, Li Yi had to stick to Kiba after 2 weeks of devil training. If you don't pay, how can you get anything in return? The infinite evolution system is really against the sky, but is it really reliable to rely only on the strength obtained by the infinite evolution system? Blacksmith need its own hardware. If all of Li Yi's strength and means are obtained through the infinite evolution system, then, once the infinite evolution system betrays, at that time, Li Yi will be beaten back to his original form. Since experiencing the darkness of human nature, Li Yi will never believe in anything else. Therefore, he will not believe in the infinite evolution system. Although the infinite evolution system is indeed his plug-in now, who knows if this plug-in will abandon him one day. Therefore, Li Yi had to be fully prepared for all this. In fact, if Li Yi completely believes in the infinite evolution system, then he can use the infinite evolution system to evolve himself. The big deal is to save a few more evolutionary opportunities. Even if the first evolution fails, and you evolve yourself into a scorpion, even if the second time you fail to evolve, you evolve yourself into a skeleton, but what about the third and fourth times? Li Yi doesn't believe that it can evolve and fail forever. As long as there is a successful evolution, then Li Yi's physical strength, chakra, and combat power can be greatly enhanced. However, Li Yi just hasn't evolved himself. The direction of evolution is uncertain, for one reason, and another because Li Yi doesn't fully believe in the infinite evolutionary system. It's not that you don't trust the system, it's that you don't fully trust the system. Once the infinite evolution system rebels, then the body that has worked so hard to evolve in the past will all disappear. At that time, Li Yi will become weak again, and once again live a life worse than a dog. Li Yi doesn't want to have that experience again. So, now, he has accepted this exercise program. Li Yi's voice was not loud, the firmness in his tone was self-evident. And after hearing Li Yi's words, Uchiha Makoto nodded lightly. It's good that you have this determination, but, if you just talk and don't practice fake hand poses, only perseverance and perseverance can you have a good harvest. Li Yi nodded. These big principles, he understands much more than Uchiha Makoto. You know, when he was on Earth, he was a 10-10 drinking chicken soup on Kuhu and WeChat. Li Yi asked, when will we start training? Now. Uchiha Makoto said. Where? Li Yi asked. Uchiha Makoto said, go and pack your things, including water and dry food. We won't go back to the village until night falls. We are leaving the village. Will there be any danger? Li Yi blinked and asked. Don't worry, all around Konoha village are our ninjas. We are exercising outside, and we are all under their perception, which means that they are protecting us all the time. Uchiha Makoto said. Exercise under their noses. Li Yi raised his eyebrows. Just imagine, when you practice frog jumping, you are stared at by a group of people. So uncomfortable. However, other than that, there is no other way. Therefore, Li Yi had to compromise and pack up. Looking at Li Yi's back, Uchiha Makoto's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Other people say you are a waste, a crane tail who knows nothing, but in my opinion, you are a genius, born with such a strong bloodline boundary, causing you to be in other aspects, including physical jutsu, ninja. Weak in every way, so to speak, in the first 20 years, your bloodline limit has dragged you down. These words, Uchiha Makoto did not say, just the heart. She continued to think, but, from now on, you will no longer be dragged down by your bloodline boundaries, on the contrary, you will become a true genius, a peerless genius with the ultimate space ninjutsu. In Uchiha Mikoto's view, Li Yi's blood following the boundaries dragged down Li Yi's development, so he was a waste and the tail of a crane. However, this point, Uchiha Mikoto guessed completely wrong. Li Yi is actually a piece of trash. And it belongs to the kind of waste that can no longer be discarded. Not only is he a sick child, his physical strength is weak, but he has almost no chakra in his body and cannot learn ninjutsu. People like him are not suitable to be ninjas at all. However, from the moment he obtained the system, all the hidden illnesses of Li Yi's body were wiped out. His whole person was like a computer restart. Although he also didn't have much chakra, his body was healthy. Countless times. After a while, Li Yi finished packing, carrying a small bag and standing in front of Uchiha Mikoto. Li Yi asked, "Are we going now?" "Good." Uchiha Mikoto head taps. Li Yi trained was outside the village. But it also falls under the jurisdiction of the village of Konoha. This is like cities and towns on the earth. The city itself is not large, but there are many towns under the city. Konoha, the terrain is wide and the view is great, perfect for training. Before reaching the destination, Li Yi asked, "Do you know where the violets are now being sent?" "I don't know." Uchiha Mikoto shook his head slightly. "However, I can help you ask." "Thank you so much then." Li Yi directly thanked you. Third generation of Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen did not want Li Yi to know the trace of violet, saying that it was for safety and confidentiality, but this did not mean that Li Yi would obey orders obediently. He still needs to know the location of violet, lest something unexpected happen. He is not prepared at all. Along the way, Li Yi just asked this question. At other times, there is silence. Finally, after walking for more than 10 minutes, Li Yi and Uchiha Mikoto arrived at their destination. Second update. Happy New Year everyone. Today is New Year's Eve. The world is really busy, but there is still a third update, but it will be later. Chapter 92-Devil's Training, Part 1. I have to say, the place Uchiha Mikoto chose is very suitable for exercise. Not only is the terrain flat, but the view is wide, and most importantly, there is a hill to the south. You know, when exercising, the most terrifying thing is not the intensity of the exercise, but the temperature of the surrounding environment. If you exercise against the sun, then Li Yi will definitely collapse. This will greatly reduce the efficiency of Li Yi's exercise. But now, there is a hill to the south, and at noon, the hill will block the sun and bring shade to Li Yi. It's still morning, the sun is not too hot, so Li Yi doesn't feel too hot. However, at noon, I am afraid that just standing there will be sweaty, not to mention that Li Yi will be dehydrated in a short while under the high-intensity exercise. At this point, Uchiha Mikoto said, "We're training right here, following the plan on that piece of paper." Li Yi asked, "I exercise, what are you doing?" "I supervise you." Uchiha Mikoto said, "Of course, in addition to supervising, I will also accompany you to exercise." Li Yi nodded. Uchiha Mikoto is very talented, she is still young after all, and she has not experienced any hatred, so her strength is not strong. You know, the evolution of Sharingan is related to hatred. The deeper the hatred, the stronger the Sharingan. However, Uchiha Mikoto doesn't know this secret. She is currently suffering from not being able to improve Sharingan's ability, so she shifted her focus and focused on taijutsu. Since you can't improve Sharingan, you can improve your physical fitness, as long as you can enhance your overall strength. After that, Li Yi started exercising. According to Uchiha Mikoto's plan, in the first step, he needs to warm up, so that the cells of the whole body are activated, and the whole person is in a state of excitement. In the second step, he needs to run, jogging for 10 minutes, jogging for 10 minutes, then jogging for another 10 minutes. And this goes on for 3 hours. In the third step, he has to stretch the muscles of the whole body through actions such as pull-ups and sit-ups. Li Yi began to warm up. There is no difficulty in the warm-up process, and it is easy to complete. Then, Li Yi started running. At the beginning, Li Yi didn't feel tired. However, under the alternation of speed and slowness, Li Yi gradually felt that his body was beginning to be overwhelmed. This kind of feeling is like pulling and pressing an iron wire. If you keep pulling it, it will be difficult to break it. If you keep pressing, it will be difficult to break it. Soon, this iron wire will break. Li Yi is now like this iron wire. The process of running fast, for him, is pulling. The process of jogging, for him, is stressful. Every 10 minutes, change the speed. After just 40 or 50 minutes, Li Yi felt that he couldn't hold it any longer. It should have been improved from jogging to fast running, but Li Yi's speed could not be raised no matter what. He is too tired. His whole body was already dripping with sweat. Sweat all wet the clothes. Hurry up and speed up, or you will fall short. Uchiha Makoto urged on the side. Li Yi bit Kiba, bit his head, and picked up the speed. Uchiha Makoto nodded in satisfaction. She knew that Li Yi's body didn't exercise very often, and now suddenly such a large amount of exercise would of course be too much to bear. However, the beginning of everything is difficult. No matter what you do, as long as you can do it well at the beginning and stick to it, then the work in the future will become much easier. So, no matter how tired Li Yi is, he has to persevere. This is for his own good. Time flies. After 2 hours, Li Yi's legs seemed to be filled with lead, so they couldn't run at all. However, according to Uchiha Makoto's plan, he has to run for another hour to reach the target. Li Yi asked in his heart, "System, can I evolve my absorption efficiency so that it can do more with less? For example, if I run for 2 hours, it is equivalent to someone else running for 3 hours or more." The crisp voice of the system immediately resounded in Li Yi's mind. "Go back to the host, no." Li Yi was taken aback. "Cannot. Why not? Didn't you say that you can evolve everything?" "Why?" Li Yi asked. "Because what the host said is not an objectively real substance." System said, "The infinite evolution system can evolve all things, but it is a real substance, not what the host said." Hearing this, Li Yi nodded. "So it is. Absorption efficiency is a talent. For some martial arts prodigies, they only need to run for an hour, which is equivalent to Li Yi running for 2 hours. Because their body absorbs quickly. This is equivalent to fighting monsters and giving experience. Fighting the same monsters, Li Yi can be upgraded by 1 level, but those who practice martial arts can be upgraded by 2 levels, or even more. So, this is talent. And if you want to get this powerful talent, there is only one way, that is to change yourself and evolve yourself. Once the evolution is successful, you may acquire this powerful talent." However, the answer of the system was also expected by Li Yi. Talent is something you can't see or touch, it's not something that actually exists, so it's reasonable that the system cannot evolve. Alas, it can only come one step at a time. Li Yi sighed inwardly, bit Kiba, and continued to run. It is said that human potential is unlimited. This statement is not false at all. An hour ago, Li Yi couldn't take it anymore. However, Li Yi bit Kiba and held on. 3 hours of running time is over. Thump! Li Yi lay on the ground, his limbs wide open, panting, with a look of unrequited love, raised his head, and stared blankly at Shirakumo above his head. Damn, it's so tiring. And until this time, Li Yi finally knew how much Might Dai paid for training the 8 inner gates. Might Dai is also a crane tail, and there is almost no chakra in his body, so he specializes in physical art, just to be able to successfully use the dead door among the 8. Only people who have experienced it themselves are eligible to comment. Li Yi is now exhausted like a dog after only running a few steps. It is conceivable that Might Dai has been suffering this pain every day for so many years. At this moment, Li Yi had a little admiration for Might Dai. Of course, admiration comes from admiration. Li Yi still wants his formation of the 8 inner gates. Whether it is robbing or stealing, He must master the cultivation method of the 8 inner gates formation. At this time, Uchiha Makoto's gentle voice entered Li Yi's ears. 15 minutes to rest. After 15 minutes, we will continue. The first update. The next update is around 2200. Ask for silver tickets plus ask for a reward. Chapter 93_Strange Personality Part 2. Time flies. Li Yi finally finished his workout. Day. Li Yi's whole body collapsed. Sunset. Li Yi lay on the ground, panting. His sweat had soaked his clothes. It is no exaggeration to say that he was sweating today and could pick up a pot. However, it is worth celebrating that he has already practiced all the sports on the list. Uchiha Makoto came over and asked, "Need a hand?" Li Yi nodded. It's not that he is hypocritical, he really doesn't even have the strength to stand up now. Uchiha Makoto stretched out a pure white jade hand. Li Yi weakly stretched out his right hand and held it with her. Uchiha Makoto pulled Li up from the ground with a slight force. Li Yi was unsteady and almost fell into Uchiha Makoto's arms. However, Uchiha Makoto was quick-witted and immediately stretched out his right hand to block Li Yi. Li Yi glanced at the jade hand on his shoulder, smiled, and said, "Sorry, the body is out of control. Can you go back by yourself?" Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly and asked, "If I can't answer, will you carry me behind your back?" Li Yi asked with a smile. "No." Uchiha Makoto shook his head. "Then I can walk back by myself," Li Yi said with a smile. "You don't have to force it," Uchiha Makoto said. "If you really don't have the strength, I can ask the ninja who is watching here and let him carry you back. After all, we still have a training program at night." Hearing this, Li Yi blinked. There are still projects. Uchiha Makoto's head tap. "From today onwards, you have to exercise both day and night. It's not that the daytime and nighttime training programs are different. At night, are you tired?" Li Yi's mouth twitched slightly and asked. Uchiha Makoto replied, "Tired, not tired, see yourself." Li Yi frowned slightly. "What are you going to do tonight?" There was no evening project on that list. After thinking for a while, Li Yi spread out his hands and said directly, "I'm running out of strength, I can't go back by myself, you can ask the ninja who is watching here to come and carry me." The words are simple and capable, without the slightest sloppiness. Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto gave Li Yi a deep look. She wanted to say something at this time, "Can we not be so shameless?" However, in the end, Uchiha Makoto called out the ninja who was watching over here. Surprisingly, the ninja watching here is actually Uchiha Yongqiang. Uchiha Yongqiang, Li Yi blinked. He knew that Uchiha Yongqiang liked Uchiha Makoto, and he liked it very much. And today, this day, he was watching Uchiha Makoto and Li Yi's flirting from a distance. You know, in order to guide Li Yi during exercise, Uchiha Makoto often has physical contact with Li Yi, and many times, Li Yi also likes to make jokes with colors, and often makes Uchiha Makoto tease Yuhi's face. What are the words, soft, big, soft, bounce, and warped? Lin Chen doesn't even have a face Yuhi when he talks about it. Uchiha Yongqiang actually watched the intimate interaction between the goddess and her rival from a distance. Afraid of being mad, Li Yi glanced at Uchiha Yongqiang's face. Although he tried his best to keep calm, Li Yi could still see that his mood was extremely bad. Actually, this is the case. Uchiha Yongqiang didn't want to lose his temper in front of Uchiha Makoto, so he never looked at Li Yi since he appeared. He was afraid that he couldn't help but beat Li Yi violently. Even if Li Yi is his savior. Uchiha Yongqiang looked at Uchiha Makoto and asked, "Makoto sister, you called me, is there anything?" "It's true." Uchiha Makoto head taps. Hearing her affirmation, Uchiha Yongqiang's face brightened and his eyes lit up. "I was actually needed by Sister Makoto." "Great." Makoto finally realized how important my existence is. Then quickly end the nonsense with this waste, and then team up with me to do other tasks. Uchiha Yanqiang looked at Uchiha Makoto with a look of anticipation. Uchiha Makoto first pointed to Li Yi who was behind him, and then continued, "Help him back, please." Hearing this, Uchiha Yanqiang was stunned for a moment, and then the endless fire of grievance, in his heart, blazes brightly. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Then, finally, Uchiha Yanqiang obediently put Li Yi on his back. Li Yi was a little surprised. Just now, he felt Uchiha Yanqiang's killing intent. He thought that Uchiha Yanqiang would reject Uchiha Makoto and even shoot himself. But I didn't expect that he actually did it obediently. Li Yi guessed that Uchiha Yanqiang would attack him while he was behind his back. However, I don't know if it was an illusion. Li Yi saw that when Uchiha Yanqiang promised Uchiha Makoto, there was a flash of excitement on his face. Li Yi's heart immediately gave birth to a bold guess. Generally speaking, a big man will definitely get angry after his self-esteem is insulted, but he is actually very excited. Is he a XX? So, in order to verify the guess in his heart, Li Yi let Uchiha Yanqiang carry it on his back. Even if his guess is wrong, even if Uchiha Yanqiang will attack Li Yi when he is carrying Li Yi is also not afraid. Li Yi fell on Uchiha Yanqiang's back. Uchiha Makoto leads the way. Uchiha Yanqiang carried Li Yi on his back and followed behind her. Looking at Uchiha Makoto's graceful back, Uchiha Yanqiang's breathing was a little heavy. In his mind, he began to think about it. Because of this, his walking speed is very slow. Uchiha Makoto turned back and looked at Uchiha Yanqiang who was gradually distanced from her. Lu Mei frowned slightly and asked, "Why is it so slow, can you be faster?" Uchiha Makoto's tone. Uchiha Yanqiang's body trembled and nodded hastily, Okay. After he finished speaking, he carried Li Yi on his back and trotted to catch up with Uchiha Makoto. Li Yi, who was on Uchiha Yanqiang's back, raised his brows. Because he found out that Uchiha Yanqiang seemed a little excited when he was reprimanded by Uchiha Makoto. Even breathing is heavy. An instant, Li Yi confirmed his guess, this guy is indeed an M. You know, the world is big, and there are no wonders. Some are S and some are M. Uchiha Yanqiang in front of me is probably an M. Thinking of this, Li Yi's vigilance is not as high as before. Li Yi was still worried that Uchiha Yanqiang might take the opportunity to sneak attack on him, but now, this worry can be completely avoided. After all, Uchiha Yanqiang's M character has already decided everything. This is the second update. It's a little late, I hope you will forgive me. I wish you and me a happy new year. Chapter 94 Ayame's Embrace Part 1. Uchiha Yanqiang carried Li Yi on his back and followed Uchiha Makoto back to Li Yi's house. Doorstep. Uchiha Yanqiang put Li Yi on the ground. Uchiha Makoto said, "Thank you." Uchiha Yanqiang frowned slightly. "Makoto-san, what are you doing to thank me? It's this kid who should be thanking me, not you." Li Yi was also slightly taken aback. He found that Uchiha Makoto always liked to steal his lines. However, the two elders didn't think much about it. Uchiha Yanqiang asked, "Makoto's sister, are you really going to live here tonight?" Uchiha Makoto head taps. "Makoto, if you do this, you will ruin your reputation." Uchiha Yanqiang persuaded bitterly. Uchiha Makoto didn't speak, just shook his head. Attitude is very firm. Seeing this, Uchiha Yanqiang knew that he could not persuade Uchiha Makoto, so he sighed lightly. He turned to look at Li Yi. He wanted to say something harsh to Li Yi. However, after being glared at by Uchiha Makoto, the words he was about to blurt out were instantly held back in his stomach. Uchiha Yanqiang is very aggrieved. "I have performed so many missions with you, but instead of helping me, you help an outsider instead. Am I in your heart, not as good as a kid who has only known each other for a few days?" However, at the same time of grievance, Uchiha Yongqiang still has a trace of excitement. If you have nothing to do, you can go. Uchiha Makoto waved his hand and said. Uchiha Yongqiang was a little reluctant. However, he did not dare to disobey Uchiha Makoto. Therefore, he had no choice but to nod in agreement. However, before leaving, he reminded again, Makoto, you must pay attention to your own safety. Living in the same room with a strange man, you must. However, before Uchiha Yongqiang finished his words, Uchiha Makoto interrupted. I have my own measure, you don't have to worry. Uchiha Yongqiang only turned his head twice, and left reluctantly. Li Yi joked, he really cares about you. Uchiha Makoto said coldly, but his concern is superfluous. Li Yi shrugged nonchalantly. However, I didn't expect that Uchiha Yongqiang turned out to be an M. Li Yi sneered again, thinking to himself. The world is full of wonders, some people are S, some people are M. And Uchiha Yongqiang is a genuine M. I don't know what S and M are, you can check it on Baidu. Of course, Li Yi didn't mean to look down on him. After all, it's not a disease, it's just a special hobby. Open the door. Uchiha Makoto said, his voice lukewarm. Good. Li Yi took out the key and prepared to open the door. But at this moment, crack! The door was pushed open from the inside. Uchiha Makoto frowned and took a half step back. The muscles in his whole body were tense at this moment, as if he would shoot at any time. Li Yi's face was also condensed. Which bastard dared to break into Lao Su's house without authorization? Under the gaze of the two, the door was pushed open, and a blank face of a beauty that had not yet opened appeared in their field of vision. Seeing this face, Li Yi breathed a sigh of relief. Who do you think? Ayame, why are you here? Li Yi asked. That's right, the person in the room is Uncle Ichiraku's daughter, Ayame. Seeing Li Yi and Ayame's pure and beautiful eyes, tears flowed directly. 2 lines of clear tears fell down his beautiful white face. Li Yi blinked. Brother Li Yi tilde. Ayame let out a soft cry and threw himself directly into Li Yi's arms. Like a kitten that hasn't seen its owner for a long time. Ayame lay in Li Yi's arms, sobbing hard. Although she didn't say much, Li Yi also knew her intentions. She must be worried that she is dead and will never see herself again, but seeing herself now, she is so emotional. Li Yi patted Ayame's back lightly and comforted. Okay, it's alright, I'm back. Uchiha Makoto saw this scene, and the tense muscles in his body gradually relaxed. She thought it was someone with bad intentions who broke into Li Yi's room without authorization and planned to attack Li Yi. It turned out not to be the case. However, the next moment, Uchiha Makoto's brows were slightly wrinkled. Ayame fell into Li Yi's arms and kept crying. Li Yi hugged her gently and patted her back. The posture of the two is very ambiguous. Looking at the ambiguous gesture of the two of them embracing each other, for some reason, Uchiha Makoto felt a trace of unhappiness in his heart. Immediately, however, the unpleasantness vanished, and even Uchiha Makoto himself did not notice it. I do not know how long it has been. Ayame finally stopped crying. Li Yi gently pushed her away. Ayame was holding Li Yi, not letting Li Yi push her away. Li Yi smiled helplessly and said, Ayame, I chose to smell like sweat all over my body. Don't hold me, it's not good if it stinks. It's okay, I don't care. Ayame held Li firmly, fingers crossed, and stubbornness was written all over his face. Li Yi smiled. At this moment, Uchiha Makoto suddenly opened his mouth and asked, Little girl, how do you have the key to his house? Of course it was given to me by brother Li Yi. Ayame said. Oh, he gave it to you. Uchiha Makoto gave Li Yi a deep look. Li Yi could explain. Ayame spoke first and explained, I used to help brother Li Yi clean up the room, so I have the key to his house. So it is. Uchiha Makoto nodded. But then again, Big sister, who are you? Ayame blinked and asked. I'm his teacher now. Uchiha Makoto pointed to Lee Yi. Teacher. Ayame blinked. Lee Yi said, her name is Uchiha Makoto. After I was kidnapped, I fled to the vicinity of the Land of Rain. She happened to be captured by the Land of Rain, and I happened to rescue her. In return, she is now guiding me. Uchiha Makoto, people of the Uchiha clan. Ayame's expression changed slightly. Over the years, the people who bullied Lee Yi the most were the people of the Uchiha family. And now, the beautiful sister in front of me is actually a member of Uchiha's clan. Lee Yi get involved with Uchiha's clan. And it looks like a good relationship. Ayame was shocked and puzzled. However, not only Ayame, but also Uchiha Makoto's expression changed slightly. Because Lee Yi didn't hide anything from this little girl. She thought that Lee Yi would simply explain it in a light-hearted manner, but she did not expect that Lee Yi would tell all the details. The first update. The next update is before 2000. This year, the hospital's respiratory department will not be on vacation, and the world has not been worse for years. Chapter 95_ The Way of Smart People Part 2. After getting along for this period of time, Uchiha Makoto has basically understood Lee Yi's character. She knew that Lee Yi, although he looked careless on the outside, was actually very suspicious in his heart. What this kind of person likes to do the most is to talk about 3 points to everyone, and pay attention to the remaining 7 points. Therefore, Uchiha Makoto thought that, regarding Ayame's problem, Lee Yi would definitely take it lightly and simply say it, that's all. But I didn't expect that Lee Yi would tell almost all the details. Seen that Lee Yi trusts this girl. It can also be seen that this girl's status in Lee Yi's heart must be very high. Thinking of this, Uchiha Makoto couldn't help but look at Ayame again. Ayame is young, she is very beautiful, and she is a full-fledged beauty. Her appearance, figure and temperament may not be as good as Uchiha Makoto now, but when she grows up completely, she will not be worse than Uchiha Makoto. At this time, Ayame asked, Brother Lee Yi, how long will she be your teacher next? 2 weeks. Lee Yi replied. 2 weeks. Ayame blinked. She took a look at Uchiha Makoto. At this time, Uchiha Makoto, wearing a light blue sportswear, outlined the perfect curve. Ayame's heart. The woman in front of her should have appearance, body and figure, and temperament. Perfect. Does Brother Lee Yi like this kind of woman? In Ayame's heart, he couldn't help but be quite surprised. As night fell, a cool breeze came blowing. Lee Yi shivered. His clothes are all soaked, and now it's blowing, can it not be cold? Therefore, Lee Yi said, let's go into the house and talk. Into the house. Uchiha Makoto and Ayame looked at each other and seemed a little reluctant. At this time, Lee Yi had walked into the house. Uchiha Makoto and Ayame then followed. In the living room, on the sofa, Uchiha Makoto, Lee Yi, and Ayame were sitting in 3 directions. Ayame asked, Brother Lee Yi, what has happened since you were kidnapped, and now, tell me what happened. Good. Lee Yi nodded slightly and explained most of the specific situations. Ayame is one of the best people in the world for him, so Lee Yi is not very wary of her. Of course, Lee Yi was not stupid enough to tell her about the system. Hearing Lee Yi's words, Uchiha Makoto and Ayame were both quite surprised. Uchiha Makoto was surprised was that Lee Yi had never told her about many of these things. But now, he told Ayame. It seems that this girl is really important to him. Uchiha Makoto thought. And the reason why Ayame is surprised is because, in these short 6 or 7 days, Lee Yi has experienced so many life and death partings. An instant, Ayame's eyes were Yuhi's, and her teary eyes were very distressing. Brother Lee Yi, you have suffered. Ayame said with a crying voice. Lee Yi smiled. Immediately afterwards, Ayame's face was a little angry. She glanced at Uchiha Makoto, and said with a small face, "In other words, from now on, you want to live with this sister for 2 weeks." "That's right." Lee Yi nodded lightly. Ayame muttered in a low voice, "Although she is your teacher and wants to guide you, she doesn't want to live with you, right?" For this question, Lee Yi smiled and prepared to answer. However, before Lee Yi could speak, Uchiha Makoto said one step ahead, "The training program at night requires me to be by my side for guidance, so from now on, the two of us will be inseparable, no matter day or night." Her attitude, cold, indifferent, very indifferent. Hearing this, Ayame's eyes twitched slightly. She turned her head and glanced at Lee Yi, as if she wanted to get Lee Yi's denial. Lee Yi nodded, affirming. Ayame was instantly furious, and the two little hands in the group's sleeves clenched slightly. She wanted to say something. "I want to live here too." However, Ayame is a smart guy after all. She wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Even if she can live here tonight, what about tomorrow night, the evening after tomorrow, the evening after tomorrow? She can't live here forever, can she? She still has work to do. So, Ayame rolled his eyes, changed his mind, and asked, "Brother Lee Yi, are you and Sister Makoto lovers?" This question is very sharp. Lee Yi blinked. Uchiha Makoto was also stunned for a moment, and immediately, her cheek was Yuhi. Lee Yi didn't care. She smiled and asked, "What do you think our relationship is?" "I don't know, that's why I asked you," Ayame said. Having said this, she changed the topic again. "However, I think, the two of you don't seem to be lovers, so there is a teacher falling in love with a student. Wouldn't that be unethical?" "Well, that makes sense." Lee Yi nodded. "Really?" A smug smile flashed across Ayame's beautiful eyes. Smart people and stupid people are different. If Ayame is stupid, she doesn't want Lee Yi to stay with Uchiha Makoto. She will definitely use stupid methods, such as deliberately slandering Uchiha Makoto, deliberately living with Lee Yi, and so on. However, Ayame is not stupid. On the contrary, she is very smart. Why she just told her to death and cut off Uchiha Makoto and Lee Yi's back path. That's right, Ayame didn't want Lee Yi to stay with Uchiha's clan. No hope at all. You know, over the years, most of the people who bullied Lee Yi the most were Uchiha's clansmen. Of course, there is another reason, that is, Ayame doesn't want Lee Yi to live with other women. However, the gold content of this point is not large, it is only a secondary reason. Sure enough, after hearing Ayame's words, Uchiha Makoto's brows furrowed slightly. She could hear the provocation in Ayame's tone. In normal times, Uchiha Makoto would not pay attention to Ayame at all. However, at this time, for some reason, Uchiha Makoto just wanted to refute it. Uchiha Makoto has always been a strong woman who can control her desires. However, even so, in the end, she still said something. "Lee Yi and I are both teachers and students and friends, and after 2 weeks, he and I will no longer be teachers and students, and there is nothing wrong with him." Say. The second day of the new year. The second update. The world is asking for a reward plus asking for a monthly ticket. Before 2300 of the next update. Chapter 96 The Importance of Mind Part 3. Ayame has been staying at Lee Yi's house since the afternoon, until now. During this period, she only did one thing, and that was to cook for Lee Yi. She originally wanted to help Lee Yi clean up the house. However, the room was spotless and tidy, nothing to tidy up. Ayame is very suspicious. Who is cleaning up the house? Certainly not Lee Yi. You know, even she can't be so neat and ingenious. However, Ayame didn't bother about it. She heard from her father that Lee Yi had returned safely, so she came to Lee Yi to surprise him. Ayame made several dishes. Although it is not rich, the taste is still very good. Now, Lee Yi has come back, and although he is with a woman, Ayame has no reason to drive away. So the three of them sat down at a table and began to eat. Uchiha Makoto reminded, Lee Yi, you still have a training program at night, eat less. Lee Yi nodded, okay. Ayame made Kiba itchy. Uchiha Makoto eats gracefully. Although the three of them didn't eat much, in the end, there was nothing left on the plate. After eating enough water, the three talked for a while. It's getting late. The sky is cold as water at night. The bright moonlight shines on the earth. Lee Yi said, it's getting late, Ayame, it's time for you to go back. Ayame was somewhat reluctant. However, looking at the time, it was really late. Therefore, Ayame had to stand up and prepare to leave. Lee Yi said, I will send you. Although Konoha village is relatively safe, it is not absolutely safe. Just like the last time, Lee Yi was taken away by the 7 ninja swordsmen in Konoha village. In this world, Ayame is one of the best people for him, and Lee Yi doesn't want to see anything happen to her. However, before leaving, Uchiha Makoto suddenly said, come back soon, we still have a training program, we can't delay any longer. Okay, I'll hurry and get back. Lee Yi smiled and nodded lightly. So, Lee Yi sent Ayame away. Ayame has been holding Lee Yi's arm, looking like a sticky kitten. While, Lee Yi delivered Ayame to her door. Do you still go in and sit? Ayame asked. Not going in. Lee Yi shook his head lightly, and then explained, I originally planned to see you this morning, but I had a training program this morning, so I didn't go. It's all right. Ayame shook her head slightly, then she took out the key and asked, Brother Lee Yi, do you want to give it back to you? No. Lee Yi shook his head. This key was given to Ayame by Lee Yi 2 or 3 years ago. Lee Yi had no reason to take it back. Ayame smiled happily and said, then I'll accept it. With that, she put the key back in the kabuto. The end, Lee Yi and Ayame parted ways. Looking at Ayame's petite figure, Lee Yi smiled and shook his head, thinking, this girl is as lively as ever. Lee Yi turned and left. It's really not too early now. However, there are few people on the street. A cool breeze blows. Lee Yi folded his arms and thought, let's go home quickly, lest we meet the 7 ninja swordsmen again. Sooner or later, he will go to the 7 ninja swordsmen for revenge. But not now. Because he doesn't have that power now. But he believes that sooner or later, he will have this strength. If you want to have the strength of the strong, you must first have the heart of the strong. Lee Yi had watched many movies, animations, and novels. There were many protagonists in them, all of whom were idiots. As soon as he got the plug-in, he became too arrogant. Their hearts are very naive. In fact, it's a bunch of slings. In Lee Yi's view, those are just anime, novels, and movies, not reality. In reality, there is no protagonist halo. A person who hangs silk and is psychologically naive, even if the plug-in is too powerful, he will end up in the end. And those people with strong Xing, even if there is no plug-in, they are still strong. To put it bluntly, in reality, hanging silk is always hanging silk, and it is never possible to turn over. And if you want to turn over, first of all, you have to have the mentality of a strong man. The inner determines the outer, and the heart determines the action. Just like the father and son might die and might guide, they never cared about the opinions of others, and they exercised themselves every day. This kind of persistence, this kind of determination, this kind of perseverance is a kind of powerful character. Therefore, even if they have no plugins, they can still shine the most dazzling light. When he was on the earth, Lee Yi once heard such a sentence, when the heavens will send great responsibilities, so people must first suffer their minds, work their muscles and bones, starve their bodies and skin, empty their bodies, and disturb their deeds. So tempted to be patient, once did what it couldn't do. And Lee Yi's understanding of this sentence, there is only one point, that is, Xing. Heaven will give a great responsibility to this man, and he must first let him have a strong character. Only a person with a strong mind can achieve great things. People who are naive and weak at heart can't support the wall after all. Li Yi believes that his character is not naive. And he also has the help of the infinite evolution system. Therefore, he firmly believes that one day, he will gain super strength, dare to beat the table with Senju Hashirama, dare to compete with Uchiha Madara, dare to cook wine with the 6 paths immortal to discuss the strength of the hero. Li Yi returned home. Looking at the dining table. On the table, there are still messy cups and plates. Uchiha Makoto walked out of the bathroom. Because the towel was not too big, many parts of Uchiha Makoto's body were exposed. Li Yi looked Uchiha Makoto up and down, as if admiring, while he said with a smile, "I thought you would help me clear the table. I'm not obligated to do this for you." Uchiha Makoto said lightly. "Okay." Li Yi shrugged. Uchiha Makoto said again, "After cleaning up, let's take a shower. After that, we will start formal training." "Okay." Li Yi nodded. After cleaning up, take a shower. Li Yi wrapped in a bath towel and walked out of the bathroom. Uchiha Makoto is not in the living room. Li Yi glanced at his room. The door is closed. Apparently, Uchiha Makoto is inside now. Li Yi didn't call her right away. But after getting dressed, I went to knock on the door. Uchiha Makoto came out of the room, and like Li Yi, she was dressed. She went straight to the point and said, "Tonight, we only practice one thing." This is the 3rd update. The world is asking for silver tickets plus asking for a reward. Chapter 97_practice Part 1. Tonight, Li Yi only practiced one project, that is space transfer. That is, the ability of the door fruit. Uchiha Makoto is very clear that she trains Li Yi for only one purpose, that is to make Li Yi familiar with this ability as soon as possible. Although Uchiha Makoto already knew that Li Yi's ability is related to physical strength, blindly enhancing physical strength is not the fundamental method. The fundamental method is to make Li Yi familiar with the power of the door fruit. Hearing Uchiha Makoto's words, Li Yi blinked. To be honest, he's exhausted now. Especially after taking a shower, all the fatigue factors in the whole body poured out. He just wants to fall asleep now. However, Li Yi also knew that with Uchiha Makoto here, he couldn't sleep for the time being. So he asked, "Then when can we rest?" Uchiha Makoto replied indifferently, "After you faint." As soon as these words came out, Li Yi opened his mouth immediately. "What? After I pass out? Just kidding. Are you trying to exhaust me to death? Besides, once I faint, how can I wake up without 2 or 3 days of recovery? You made me faint. What about tomorrow's training?" Looking at Li Yi's doubtful eyes, Uchiha Makoto replied, "Don't worry, you are exhausted now, just use a little strength, you will faint, and then tomorrow morning, you will be able to wake up." Quote. Hearing this, Li Yi curled his lips and said, "Even if I can wake up tomorrow morning, how can I continue exercising when my whole body is weak?" However, Uchiha Makoto said, "That's what it wants. Are you sure you won't hurt my foundation by doing this?" Li Yi frowned slightly. There is no such thing as muscle lysis in this world. But there are symptoms of muscle lysis. Many ninjas, in order to quickly improve their strength, disregard their endurance and forcibly exercise, causing the muscles of the body to be unable to bear, and suffering from muscle lysis, and they will die soon. And now, Li Yi feels that if he keeps exercising like this, in a few days, he may have muscle lysis. At that time, he will be better than dead. However, Uchiha Makoto shook his head indifferently and said, "Yesterday, I used chakra to find out your physique. Your physique is not bad. On the contrary, your physique is extremely malleable. Therefore, I am for you. The training plan you make is completely within your tolerance range, and you don't have to worry about hurting the foundation." Quote. Hearing this, Li Yi narrowed his eyes. He thought that yesterday, Uchiha Makoto injected chakra into his body, just to explore the ability of the door fruit. But unexpectedly, Uchiha Makoto even probed his body. It seems that this woman is very good at layout. Seeing that Li Yi was silent, Uchiha Makoto asked, "What? You don't believe me?" Li Yi thought for a moment. And, he slowly shook his head. "I believe in you. Since you believe me, let's do it," Uchiha Makoto said. "Start doing." Li Yi's eyes twitched slightly. Start to do. Doing what? Always feel that Uchiha Makoto's words are easy to misunderstand. However, the current Li Yi is exhausted and has no intention of making jokes with color. Now he just wants to finish training quickly and go to bed. So he asked directly, "Where am I going?" "From near to far, from here, to my room," Uchiha Makoto said. Li Yi corrected, "That's my room." Uchiha Makoto immediately retorted, "But now, that's my room." Li Yi no longer refuted, but took a deep breath, closed his eyes slightly, and began to invoke the ability of the door fruit. A strange energy gathered around his body. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Makoto's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. She thought about it first. And the next moment, her pupils shrank, and she suddenly turned on Sharingan. In an instant, the environment in front of him changed color. And then, her pupils shrank slightly. Because in her eyes, Li Yi at this time is like a flame, and the space around Li Yi, that is, the space around the flame, is slightly distorted. As for the rest, she couldn't see it. However, Uchiha Makoto can be sure that Lin Chen's ability must have other mysteries. However, with her current pupil strength, she can't see it yet. Out a slow breath, Uchiha Makoto closed the Sharingan. But when she opened her eyes again, she saw that a translucent oval door appeared out of thin air in front of Li Yi's eyes. Li Yi stood up staggeringly, ready to open the oval door. However, at this moment, Uchiha Makoto took the lead, stood in front of the oval door, and said, "I'll try it." After speaking, she stretched out her right hand and grabbed the handle of the oval door. Before, she had heard from Akatsuki's people that Li Yi rescued her through this oval door that appeared out of thin air. At that time, Li Yi opened the oval door. After they got in, they came to a brand new space. In this brand new space, there was also an oval door, but the oval door was open. At that time, they walked out through the oval door, left the land of rain, and came to Anning village. To be honest, Uchiha Makoto didn't quite believe what Akatsuki said until he saw this oval door. After all, the oval door appeared out of thin air. What about entertaining children? But, right now, facts speak louder than words. No matter how unbelievable Uchiha Makoto was, the fact was in front of her, and she couldn't tolerate her unbelief. She took a deep breath, stretched out her white and slender right hand, and placed it on the handle of the oval door. She wanted to pull the door open. However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't open the door. The end, Uchiha Makoto put his hands together, his feet were on the ground, and he leaned back hard, eating the force of eating nigh. But even so, the oval door is still not loose at all. Uchiha Makoto had no choice but to give up. How heavy is this door? Why is it so difficult to open? At this moment, Li Yi staggered over. He stretched out a finger, and it was the little finger of his right hand, and placed it on the oval door. Immediately after, crack! A crisp sound. The oval door was opened. Inside the oval door, a space of alternating black and green appeared in the sight of the two of them. "I'll go first." After speaking, Li Yi stepped into the oval door. The oval door in front of him is 1.7 meters high. Therefore, Li Yi only needs to bend over to walk into the door, instead of digging in like a carp. Uchiha Makoto's face was full of surprise. Her height is only over 1.6 meters, so she can walk in the door without bending down at all. The first update. Except for the hospital, other places have not started work, alas. Finally, the world asks for a reward plus asks for a silver ticket. Chapter 98-Massage Part 2. The two entered the door. The oval door behind him disappeared. What comes into view is a space that alternates between black and green. Uchiha Makoto looked around and said, "How do I feel, the colors here?" However, before Uchiha Makoto finished speaking, Lee Yi said, "It looks like a watermelon, right?" Uchiha Makoto nodded. Lee Yi shrugged. When Lee Yi was watching Pirates, he complained about this on various posts. The door fruit ability is indeed very powerful, but the space in the door fruit is very low. The exterior color looks like a watermelon. However, Lee Yi did not struggle with this. After all, practicality is the fundamental requirement. If it just looks good, but not practical, what is the difference between it and a vase? Lee Yi and Uchiha Makoto, an oval door was erected. However, this oval door is open. Lee Yi walked forward. Uchiha Makoto followed. When the two walked out of the oval door behind them disappeared instantly. And Lee Yi and Uchiha Makoto have already appeared in Lee Yi's room. Uchiha Makoto opened his small mouth slightly. You know, Lee Yi's room is closed. And just now, they went from the living room, crossed the door, and came directly to the room. Obviously, this ability is space transfer. Uchiha Makoto knew for a long time that Lee Yi had this kind of blood-following boundaries, but after seeing this scene, Uchiha Makoto was still a little shocked. After all, space transfer is not a small ability. After the shock, looking at Lee Yi's sweat-stained clothes, Uchiha Makoto asked, "Are you tired?" Lee Yi nodded. Although it was only teleported from the living room to the room, the distance was very close, but Lee Yi was already exhausted. How could he not be tired if he used the power of Devil Fruit now? Condensing the door, 3 seconds, from opening the door to leaving the door, another 3 seconds, a total of 6 seconds. Uchiha Makoto analyzed. Although this time is not long, it is simply not enough in a real master duel. Hearing this, Lee Yi nodded. Master duel, just 1 second, you can decide life and death, win or lose. But it took him a full 6 seconds to reach the destination from the cohesion gate. Moreover, the distance between the starting point and the destination is still very close. If the distance increases, then the time will also increase. Just like when he went from the Land of Rain to Anning Village, Lee Yi gathered for more than a minute. However, Lee Yi also knew that he was exhausted and not in a good state. If he is full of energy now, then, in 3 or 4 seconds, he can accomplish this in no need of 6 seconds. Uchiha Makoto said, "You'll have to take a shower later." Lee Yi looked at the whole body. The clothes were soaked with sweat again. Lee Yi said feebly, "It's been a long lesson. I'll take a shower after I finish training tomorrow." Uchiha Makoto said, "Do you still have the strength?" "One more point." Lee Yi said, "You know your body best." Therefore, Lee Yi could feel that his physical strength was about to reach the brink of collapse. "From here, teleport to the living room, is it okay?" Uchiha Makoto asked. "I'll try." Lee Yi lowered his eyelids and nodded. He is very sleepy now. However, he still resisted the drowsiness and used the ability of the door fruit again. However, this time, the oval door did not appear in front of Lee Yi, but at the feet of Lee Yi. In the end, an oval door with a length of only 50 or 60 centimeters was formed out of thin air. Moreover, this oval door is open. Therefore, as soon as the oval door was formed, Lee Yi fell into it. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Makoto was startled, and hurriedly ran forward with his mouth covered. However, he saw that Lee Yi just fell into the door, and there was no serious problem. Uchiha Makoto let out a sigh of relief. Then, she also jumped down. The oval door disappeared out of thin air. In space. Lee Yi jumped down, he couldn't bear it any longer and fell asleep directly. So, when Uchiha Makoto jumped down, Lee Yi was already lying on the ground and fell asleep. Seeing this, Uchiha Makoto smiled helplessly. Then, she supported Lee Yi and walked out of the space. Lee Yi's body was already wet with sweat. He has fallen asleep now and can't take a bath by himself. Therefore, Uchiha Makoto had to bite Kiba, and then with a slight cheek, took off the clothes on Lee Yi. Then, Uchiha Makoto supported Lee Yi and walked into the bathroom. After that, it is a scene of sweet fragrance. A big beauty bathes a big gentleman in person. Can this scene be sweet and fragrant? Of course, because Lee Yi is now in a coma, he doesn't know anything about what's happening now. Lee Yi had already taken a shower before, so this time, it didn't take too long. Uchiha Makoto just washed the sweat off his body, then washed a few, not transparent enough, spots, that's all. Well, that's all. Uchiha Makoto doesn't like Lee Yi's body, so Uchiha Makoto closes his eyes when he washes some places for Lee Yi. After washing, Uchiha Makoto dried Lee Yi, then supported him and put him on the sofa. Wrapped in a bath towel, Lee Yi lay on the sofa and slept soundly. Uchiha Makoto rubbed his little hands together and let out a few breaths of heat. Then, he stretched out his hands and massaged Lee Yi. She knew that Lee Yi was active today and needed a massage. Otherwise, tomorrow morning, Lee Yi's body is sore and weak, how can he train? Uchiha Makoto's massage technique is not only a massage between the skin and muscles, but also on her palms. There are chakras that flow in Lee Yi's body. Massage between the skin and muscles can relax the muscles and blood. And the flow of chakra, you can rest assured. Described in one sentence, a simple muscle massage is only to relax the body, while the flow of chakra can relax the soul. Only when the body and soul relax together can Lee Yi rest completely and recover quickly. The current Lee Yi needs efficient rest. I was already tired from training. If I didn't get enough rest, I'm afraid that within 2 or 3 days, Lee Yi would collapse. Uchiha Makoto didn't want to see that scene. So, from now on, every night, she will care Lee Yi like this. And this is the main reason why she lives with Lee Yi. After half an hour, Uchiha Makoto finally finished the massage. This is the second update. There is another update today, but it will be later. The world is looking for silver tickets plus rewards. Chapter 99_unpalatable to the extreme Part 1. Slowly exhaling the aroma, Uchiha Makoto raised his jade hand and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Her face was a little pale. Obviously, although this massage only lasted for half an hour, it was also a kind of exhaustion for her. Lee Yi was already lying on the sofa, fast asleep. Uchiha Makoto covers Lee Yi with the quilt. Looking at the sleeping Lee Yi, Uchiha Makoto smiled in satisfaction. Logically speaking, Lee Yi was so tired today that he had to rest for at least 2 or 3 days before he could rest. But now, through her massage, she is confident that when Lee Yi wakes up tomorrow morning, his energy will be full again. This is the effect of massage. I'd better go take a shower. A fragrant sweat came out of his body. Uchiha Makoto took a few deep breaths, and then walked into the bathroom. Because he had taken a bath before, this time, Uchiha Makoto only took 5 or 6 minutes to finish the bath. Lee Yi was still asleep. Uchiha Makoto looked at the time. The night is dark. Uchiha Makoto stretched, and a drowsiness swept over him. Humans are not machines, they feel both hungry and tired. Even someone as beautiful and strong as Uchiha Makoto can feel tired. Go to bed. Uchiha Makoto first checked the room, doors, and windows to make sure there were no safety hazards, then he no longer hesitated and went to sleep in the room. All night. Time always flies by when doing what you love to do. For those who are tired, sleep is their favorite thing. Therefore, this night, Lee Yi felt that it was over in the blink of an eye. The next morning, Lee Yi was woken up by Uchiha Makoto. That's right, Uchiha Makoto gently patted Lee Yi's face with his 2 soft jade hands and woke him up. Lee Yi reluctantly opened his eyes. Uchiha Makoto said, "Pack up, eat something, and then we go on to training." "It's dawn." Lee Yi rubbed his sleepy eyes and asked. "The sun is out," Uchiha Makoto said. After speaking, she got up and opened the curtains. Sure enough, as she said, the sun has come out. "Why does the night go by so quickly?" Lee Yi muttered inwardly. "Come on over and have something to eat and then we'll go to training together." Uchiha Makoto pointed to a few simple meals on the table. Lee Yi looked at the table, but frowned slightly. Because the ingredients on the table are all things that he does not have at home. So, Lee Yi asked directly, "Where did you get these ingredients?" "Bought." Uchiha Makoto answered lightly. "Bought it? With whose money?" Lee Yi blinked and asked. "Use your money," Uchiha Makoto replied, and after she finished speaking, she took out a money bag from her bosom and explained, "You saved me and completed the task, this is your reward." Lee Yi frowned slightly. "Why is my money with you?" Night before yesterday, the third-generation Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen asked Lee Yi to go to receive the reward for the task yesterday morning, but Lee Yi went to exercise with Uchiha Makoto, so he didn't receive it. Lee Yi had planned to wait until later when he had time to collect the money. "But I didn't expect that Uchiha Makoto would take the lead." Uchiha Makoto replied, "Yesterday, Uchiha broke their trust in them and gave this reward to me." Uchiha broke his trust. Lee Yi blinked, and immediately understood. 3 generations of Hokage must have made Uchiha untrustworthy, and handed the reward to Lee Yi in person. However, yesterday, Uchiha was ridiculed by Lee Yi in every possible way for his untrustworthiness. He was furious and didn't want to talk to Lee Yi, so he handed the reward to Uchiha Makoto, who then passed it on to Lee Yi. But I didn't expect that the latter actually used the money without authorization to buy ingredients. "I found you, this little girl, is very assertive." Lee Yi stared at Uchiha Makoto and said deeply. "Why do I feel that you are not complimenting me with these words?" Uchiha Makoto asked with a smile. "Your senses are so sharp." Lee Yi immediately turned to Uchiha Makoto and gave a thumbs up. "Hee hee." Uchiha Makoto smiled at Lee Yi with a gentle and moving smile. "This money is not much, but it is enough for our living expenses for 2 weeks." Uchiha Makoto weighed the purse in his hand again and said, "Then I will keep it for you. From today, until 2 weeks later, I will make breakfast, dry food for lunch, and dinner." However, before Uchiha Makoto finished speaking, there was a sudden poof. Lee Yi directly sprayed the food he just ate. Uchiha Makoto frowned slightly and asked, "What's wrong?" Lee Yi wiped his lips with his left hand, and held chopsticks in his right hand. He looked at the cyan black thing that looked like a rice cake on the plate in front of him, and asked, What is this?" "It's egg pie," Uchiha Makoto replied, seriously. Lee Yi turned his head, looked at Uchiha Makoto, and asked equally, seriously, "Have you ever done this before?" Uchiha Makoto shook his head slightly. "I haven't done it." "That is to say, this is yours first attempt." Lee Yi looked Uchiha Makoto up and down and asked. Uchiha Makoto hesitated at first, and finally nodded lightly, His voice was not loud, and he seemed a little shy. Lee Yi looked at Uchiha Makoto and found that there was a lot of ash on her body. He knew that Uchiha Makoto must have worked hard to cook the dishes in front of him. Lee Yi asked directly, "When did you start making this breakfast?" Uchiha Makoto replied, "Half an hour ago." Hear this answer. Lee Yi smiled. Asked, "How about a liar?" That he couldn't hide Lee Yi, Uchiha Makoto answered truthfully, 2 hours ago. Sure enough. Lee Yi nodded. What's wrong? Uchiha Makoto's delicate body trembled slightly, and then asked cautiously, is it that the food I made is not delicious? Uchiha Makoto's cautious appearance is like a little bird that needs to be taken care of. Looking at Uchiha Makoto, Lee Yi first thought about it. And he shook his head flatly. No, it's not bad. Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto's eyes lit up, his face was also slightly happy, and it became brighter. The next moment, Lee said again, it's extremely unpalatable. The first update. The world asks for silver tickets plus rewards. The world is a respiratory doctor. Because the epidemic situation is more serious this year, the world does not have annual holidays. Every day, I write novels after work. Chapter 100 _ High Emotional Intelligence Part 2. It's horribly unpalatable. Lee didn't hide it in the slightest, and directly told his inner thoughts truthfully. As soon as this word comes out, Uchiha Makoto's face turned pale. She knows that the food she cooks is really not very delicious. However, as long as you have a little emotional intelligence, you will not directly say that it is unpalatable, right? But Lee is better, not only directly said that it was unpalatable, but also said that it was extremely unpalatable. This is simply a deliberate insult. Uchiha Makoto suddenly felt a very wrong feeling. She did her best to make this meal. 2 hours ago, she went to the vegetable market, bought all the ingredients, and did her best to make the most delicious meal. At least it was the tastiest thing she could now. But now, this meal, in Lee's eyes, is still shit, isn't it? That's right, what Lee said gave her the feeling that it was her food, not shit. Uchiha Makoto lowered his head in disappointment. However, at this moment, Lee added, although it is extremely unpalatable, but compared to other people's first cooking, you did a great job. Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto squinted. Lee continued, I think, in terms of cooking, you are very talented, there is a lot of room for improvement, and you are more malleable. If you have some training, then, over time, your cooking skills will improve. It will reach an amazing level. Quote. In Uchiha Makoto's beautiful eyes, there was a look of expression in an instant. Lee said no more. In fact, from the very beginning, he did not tell lies, nor did he intend to. Because he knows that a lie is always a lie and can never become the truth. Lie will only deceive Uchiha Makoto, and will only make Uchiha Makoto have an unwarranted self-confidence. Delicious is delicious, not delicious is not delicious, don't talk about anything else. Lee didn't intend to comfort Uchiha Makoto. What bullshit white lies. What the fuck? Lies are always lies. Let's be honest. So that she has self-awareness. Telling the truth is the real responsibility to her. If Uchiha Makoto has a talent for cooking, let her learn it and don't waste that talent. If Uchiha Makoto doesn't have the talent in this area, just cut the mess and give up now, don't waste time. Because of this, from the very beginning, Lee's words were very sharp. After listening to Lee's words, Uchiha Makoto's face, although not happy, became brighter. The next moment, she raised her head and looked at Lee, with a look of anticipation in her eyes. Lee was taken aback. He could see what Uchiha Makoto was expecting. However, he didn't understand, what was Uchiha Makoto expecting? Expect him to eat the meal? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. This meal is so unpalatable, it is less than 1/10,000th of the violet. Even if I starve to death, die outside, and jump off a cliff, I will not eat this meal. Lee has always been a man of his word. Say no to eat. Starve to death without eating. So, under the expectant gaze of Uchiha Makoto, Lee slowly got up and planned to leave. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Makoto hurriedly gestured towards the table. Lee raised his eyes. She actually really wanted Lao-Su to eat this table of food. Lee patted his head, feeling a little helpless, and said, if you want to practice cooking, I can try the dishes for you. But if the taste is not good, then I will only try one bite. If it tastes good, then I will try the dishes for you. Eat them all, understand? Uchiha Makoto nodded thoughtfully. Well, let's get ready to go. Lee stretched his waist. He barely ate the food on the table. What he meant was very obvious. Seeing this scene, Uchiha Makoto pouted his mouth slightly, and there was a hint of unwillingness on that delicate face. However, Lee has made up his mind. So, looking at the, still hearty, meal on the table, Uchiha Makoto could only sigh quietly. However, the next moment, Lee walked back and picked up the 2 cakes on the table. It's not a good habit to skip breakfast. Lee smiled slightly and swallowed the cakes one by one. Then, his brows furrowed slightly. Because it's really hard to eat. But you can also swallow. After eating the cake, Lee took a sip of water and rinsed his mouth. Go away. After clapping his hands, Lin Chen walked out of the room. Seeing the figure of Lee leaving, a strange color flashed across Uchiha Makoto's beautiful eyes. She is a smart woman. Therefore, from Lee's words and deeds just now, she can see part of Lee's character. I didn't expect this guy to have a knife mouth and a tofu heart. Uchiha Makoto smiled teasingly. Before, Lee criticized her cooking so much that it wasn't even bullshit. But in the end, Lee ate 2 more cakes. This made Uchiha Makoto instantly understand Lee's mind. Lee criticizes himself just to make himself better, not because he speaks straight and has no emotional intelligence. On the contrary, he is very emotional. It is precisely because of his high emotional intelligence that he criticizes himself. This man, as expected, is very different from other men. Uchiha Makoto whispered in his heart. At this moment, Uchiha Makoto's heart, as if another string was plucked. And almost at the same time, a task on the Infinite Evolution System panel suddenly flashed. But the task didn't go away, it just flickered, that's all. Under the company and guidance of Uchiha Makoto, Lee continued to train. In this world, almost no one likes overdrawn, devil-like training. Lee resolutely did the same. Time flies by doing what you love. Do things you don't like, time always goes by slowly. Therefore, on this day, Lee feels only 1 year has passed. Sunset. Night fell gradually. Lee was lying on the ground with his limbs stretched wide, his whole body soaked with sweat. He was panting, pale, and clearly collapsed. Uchiha Makoto stood beside Lee, glanced at the sky, and said, "That's it for today, you rest for a while, and I'll have someone carry you later." Lee was weak and laughed, "Why do you have to let others carry me? Can't you carry me?" Hearing this, Uchiha Makoto was slightly taken aback. If she heard this yesterday, there are only 2 possibilities for her answer. 1. Relentless rejection. 2. Don't bird Lee at all, directly ask people to carry him. But today, for some reason, that's right, Uchiha Makoto didn't even know why, she didn't dare to answer.